Chapter 23-22. The tomb had finally been refined to the huge wasteland that Yang Chun and the others had to rely on the super-large cave residents to pass through. As expected, heaven's retribution began to descend. Just like the last time, except for those permitted by Yang Chun, all the practitioners in the spiritual world of the Mountain River geographical map fell into a coma. Under everyone's gaze, heaven's retribution began to fall like raindrops. Those who had not seen what it looked like last time had never experienced such a violent scene. As soon as heaven's retribution came, everyone was shocked. They had seen hundreds of heaven's retribution falling and heaven's retribution covering hundreds of miles. But who had really experienced the overwhelming scene of heaven's retribution? It was densely surrounded, almost denser than the air. Was that heaven's retribution? There was no doubt that this was the real heaven's retribution, a genuine heaven's retribution. After the surprise, everyone no longer dared to take it lightly. They immediately tried their best to bear the baptism of heaven's retribution. According to each person's cultivation, heaven's retribution chose the appropriate degree to descend. Soon, everyone fell into their own cultivation with the help of heaven's retribution. It could be said that from the beginning of the heaven's retribution, all the disciples of Chunyang Palace felt the benefits. Even the lowest level human immortal disciple would have a corresponding weakened heaven's retribution. Even if it could not be compared with the power of the real heaven's retribution, they could feel the power of the human immortal retribution at the human immortal stage. It would only be helpful for their future cultivation. As for those who had surpassed the fairy immortal stage, the benefits they received were even greater. Originally, they had withstood the earthly, immortal retribution to baptize their bodies many times. It was a good way to quickly improve their cultivation. Not to mention anything else, just the constant tempering of their bodies by heaven's retribution had benefited all the disciples a lot. However, the disciples of Chunyang Palace could only enjoy this. There would be no heaven's retribution beyond the earthly, immortal retribution, only the earthly, immortal retribution. However, there was no upper limit to the number of earthly immortal retribution. As long as you could bear it, and your magic treasure could bear it, it would always fall on your head. Almost all the disciples of Chunyang Palace were wondering how heaven's retribution was achieved. Unfortunately, at this time, no one could give them an answer, and their questions were only in their hearts. They would never give up such a great opportunity to train and run to the bottom of the matter. Only fools would do that. Yang Chun had once told everyone in advance that the heavenly tribulation was not a tribulation. Instead, it was a form of examination in the process of cultivation. At the same time, it was also a path to a higher level of cultivation. In the past, no one understood what Yang Chun meant. Only now did they truly understand that it was true. However, perhaps only an expert like Yang Chun, who did not play by the rules, could provide such an opportunity for everyone, right? The major sect had dominated the spiritual realm for a long time, but they had never heard of anyone being able to do this. The Shintian sect was big and strong enough, but in the end, they could only cultivate honestly. For a moment, those disciples who had just joined Chunyang Palace from Shintian sect became more and more assured. This move alone was enough to make them completely loyal to Chunyang Palace. The Celestial Immortal Tribulation and Xian Immortal Tribulation could only be enjoyed by this group of cultivators in the Mountain River geographical map. They were all relatives and friends that Yang Chun felt close enough to. They also received the heaven's retribution according to their respective cultivation. For example, the disciples of Yang Chun were only in the Earth Immortal realm. They had just gotten the Tianyuan pill and had not yet reached the level where they could receive a higher level of heaven's retribution. Most of them, like the old tree demon Ho Yun and the palace master, were already at the early stage of fairy immortal and could enjoy the earth immortal tribulation. Lin Jinyuan, Zhou Xianying, and Madame Bai were already directly bathed in the Xian immortal tribulation. They had experienced it once last time, so they were familiar with it. Without Yang Chun's reminder, they enjoyed it separately. Yang Chun and the other women began to seriously face the celestial immortal tribulation. After passing the celestial immortal tribulation, they would be real Xian immortals, not just fake Xian immortals like they were now. There were no tribulation clouds in the sky at all because of the dense heavens retribution. There was no place for the tribulation clouds at all. With the lowest cultivation level of Yang Chen's family at the middle stage of Xian immortal, it was easy to pass the celestial immortal tribulation. Rumbling celestial immortal tribulations kept bombarding them, tempering their bodies and making them even stronger. Before everyone had time to enjoy the feeling of improving the quality of spiritual power after becoming a real Xian immortal, the dense heavens retribution had surrounded everyone again. Everyone knew very well that every time they took a heavens retribution, no matter the degree, there would be a small corresponding space barrier formed. When all the space barriers were completed, the process of refining the heavens retribution tomb would stop, so everyone was doing their best to bear it. Their bodies had been tempered several times by the heavens retribution and were almost close to the limit, but the number of heaven's retribution in the sky did not decrease at all. When their bodies could not bear any more, they did not try to be brave, but took out their own natal magic weapons and began to refine them. At this point, almost everyone's choice was the same. After refining their bodies, they would refine their natal magic weapons. A suitable heaven's retribution was more effective than a month of dedicated refining. It was just that if they continued to refine their natal magic weapons, they would soon reach their limit. At this time, the level of their cultivation and the quality of their natal magic weapons could be seen. An ordinary worldly immortal disciple of Chunyang Palace could at most take less than 10 weakened versions of the worldly immortal tribulation. An earthly immortal disciple could withstand hundreds to thousands of heaven's retribution. Of course, there were abnormal ones like Yang Chen's disciples who could withstand thousands of heaven's retribution. However, such evildoers were not common. The above number was the limit that a cultivator's body and natal magic weapons could withstand. The number of earthly immortal tribulations they had to withstand was also at this level. As for ordinary Xian immortal experts, it was 10 times more. The millions of cultivators in Chunyang Palace added up should have endured billions of heaven's retribution. However, compared with the heaven's retribution that was still densely packed in the sky, it was not even a drop in the bucket. In fact, at this level, it had only been a mere 20 hours, and ordinary cultivators had already reached their limit. The only ones who could really hold on were Yang Chen's family, Lin Jiyuan, Madame Bai, and the Dragon Clan. However, even Yang Chen's family, except for Yang Chun and Zhou Xianying, all the girls had begun to refine their natal magic weapons. The endurance of their bodies had also reached the limit. In the Xian immortal realm, only Yang Chun could really rely on his body to hold on until now. His strong body had not yet used the power of the Golden Bell, but it had already made the Dragon Clan look inferior. Chapter 23:23. What fell on Yang Chun was not the celestial immortal tribulation that he should have endured. After passing the celestial immortal tribulation, Yang Chun had asked his third primordial spirit to replace it with the Xian immortal tribulation. Yang Chun was too abnormal. He had already practiced the golden body secret technique that was integrated with the yellow, turban strongman body refining technique to the advanced level. Now that he had entered the first level of Kwa Yi's secret technique, the strength of his body were not worse than some real almighty immortals. Yang Chun was only at the beginning of the first level of Kwa Yi's secret technique. According to the normal method, it would take at least tens of thousands of years to reach this level. Although Kwa Yi's status in the heavenly court was extraordinary, it was exchanged with hundreds of thousands of years of hard work. But if the masters of Kwa Yi's family saw that Yang Chun could now cultivate with the help of countless heaven tribulations, they would be so jealous that their eyeballs would pop out. Every Xian immortal tribulation that fell on Yang Chun was equivalent to helping Yang Chun cultivate a little more Kwa Yi's secret technique. At the same time, it also allowed the universe treasure cultivation technique to temper his body a little more. Although the increase each time was not very much, and could even be said to be so subtle that it was almost undetectable, the amount was huge. The way ants moved could empty a mountain, and the way of nibbling could refine the devil realm. Everything was the same. There was no need to worry about the small change each time. As long as the number of times was enough, the effect could be guaranteed. This was the case for Yang Chen now. The power of the Xian immortal tribulation was no longer enough to destroy his body. In other words, there was no limit for Yang Chen to resist the power of the Xian immortal tribulation with his body alone. Of course, this was the normal Xian immortal tribulation. If it was restored to the Xian immortal tribulation in the tomb that was 10 times stronger, perhaps Yang Chen would have to rely on his own spiritual power. Yang Chen had a lot to refine. In addition to his physical body, there was also the immortal beheading saber, the great yin-yang 5 elements flying sword, and the fusion of the golden bell. If it were not for the urgency of time, Yang Chen would even want to rely on heaven's tribulation to refine the things in the entrance of the immortal beheading platform and the corpse dump. Just the immortal beheading platform alone was enough for Yang Chen to withstand all the heavenly tribulations. It was impossible for the Zhao family to give Yang Chen that much time. So Yang Chen could only try his best to refine all sorts of things and absorb as much power as possible from the heavenly tribulation to form a spatial barrier as soon as possible. Another 3 days passed. Basically, with the exception of Yang Chen, there were no other cultivators who could resist the heavenly tribulation with their bodies. At this time, everyone had shifted the focus of their tempering to their natal magic treasures. Only Yang Chen was still persisting. The disciples of the Chunyang Palace could no longer feel the heavenly tribulation. They had already reached their limit. They were each in seclusion to comprehend what they had gained in the past few hours. These few hours were definitely comparable to their years or even decades of hard work. Looking at only Yang Chen, who was still resisting the heavenly tribulation with his body, Madame Bai was also very envious and muttered, "So what if you practice well? Aren't you still working hard for others after going up?" After so many years of getting along, everyone had already gone from familiar to close. Hearing Madame Bai's words, there was a burst of laughter mixed with the roar of the heavenly tribulation. It was very tacit. Madame Bai's words were not unreasonable. Generally, cultivators would only begin to practice the yellow, turbaned strongman body refining technique in the immortal world. Basically, the yellow turbaned strongman body refining technique was to do odd jobs for the heavenly court. However, everyone knew that Madame Bai was just envious and jealous of Yang Chen's cultivation base. At this realm, he was able to cultivate the yellow turbaned strongman body refining technique to this realm. Even if he ascended now, he would not be wronged in the heavenly court. However, when Yang Chen took out the yellow turbaned strongman body refining technique for everyone to practice, the women all avoided it. No one wanted to practice themselves into that kind of appearance. Everyone was sacrificially refining. Only Gong Sunling was the most special. Everyone was sacrificially refining their natal magic treasures. But Gong Sunling's natal magic treasure was the mountain river geographical map. She didn't need to do anything. Everything was enhancing the power of the mountain river geographical map. Therefore, Gong Sunling was the most idle. However, she was not really idle. After discussing with Yang Chen, she began to use the entrance of the demon realm as the basis, and with the power of the heavenly tribulation, she began to refine the demon realm. The dragon clan of the Zhao family has obviously refined a lot of the demon realm. If it is simply divided according to the realm, the level of the demon realm is obviously higher than that of the demon realm. Even if Gong Sunling has completely refined the demon realm, but if she really compared with the dragon clan master, she may not be an opponent. Similarly, if two worlds want to compete, it is best to be a world of the same level to be evenly matched. Therefore, refining the demon realm is actually an inevitable thing. Big brother Li Cheng also mentioned it once when he left, but he suggested that it was best to only refine it near the entrance of the demon realm and not compete with the dragon clan master head-on and wait for him to investigate it. Gong Sunling also followed big brother Li Cheng's advice and only refined it near the entrance of the demon realm. Although the level of the demon realm is higher than that of the demon realm, With the foundation of refining the demon realm, coupled with such a huge number of heavenly tribulations, the speed of refining the demon realm is not slower than that of the demon realm. That is, the third primordial spirit has not closed the entrance of the demon realm. Otherwise, after the Zhao family enters the demon realm, they will not be able to return, unless the other party refines the entire demon realm and then competes with the third primordial spirit for the ownership of the entrance of the demon realm. Of course, even if the Zhao family takes back the entrance of the demon realm with the current situation, as long as Yangchun is willing, the masters of the Zhao family and those monsters will only appear in the Mountain River geographical map. Unfortunately, this is not in line with the interests of the Zhao family, Yangchun, and also not in line with the interests of the major sect. The major sect is now relying on solving the big trouble of the Zhao family to reach a new height of reputation. How can they be willing to let the enemy suddenly disappear? Of course, Yangchun is not willing to rely on his own family to fight against the huge Zhao family. This is the matter of all the cultivators in the spiritual realm. Yangchun is not noble enough to take the initiative to do things without leaving his name. If Yangchun really did this, it would not be suspected by the major sects that there was something fishy about it, but it would be feared by the major sects, and then wantonly suppressed. There would be no other results. In the beginning, by relying on Yangchun and others to refine their bodies and life-bonded magic treasures, even if the power of the heaven tribulation was great, after all, the number of people was there, and the speed of consuming the heaven tribulation was not fast. But since Gong Sunling began to refine the demon realm, the speed immediately changed. The land of the demon realm is also integrated into the Mountain River geographical map at a speed visible to the naked eye. With the expansion of the refining area, the amount of heaven tribulation consumed at the same time at each moment is also greatly different. Compared to simply relying on the tempering of the body and magic treasures, the improvement is no less than thousands of times. In the senses of the third primordial spirit and Gong Sunling, the space barrier is forming at an incredible speed. At this speed, it will be completely formed in a few years. Chapter 23-24. They didn't know if the Zhao family would spare time for Yangchun and Gong Sunling in the next few years. However, since Brotherly Chung had entered the demon realm, he would definitely find out the changes here as soon as possible. As long as Brotherly Chung was there, he would definitely be able to buy enough time for them. This was not blind superstition, but absolute confidence left in everyone's minds by the facts that had happened many times before. While Yangchun was refining the tomb of the heavenly calamity, the major sects in the spiritual realm were not idle. Everyone had learned a lesson from the disbandment of the Xintian sect. One sect alone could not compete with the Zhao family. If they wanted to defeat the Zhao family, they had to really unite. Whether it was the previous intrigue or fighting for their own interests, they couldn't do it in the current serious situation. Now everyone needed to let go of their former enmity and work together to deal with the outside world. In this regard, Chunyang Palace's performance was very eye-catching. Chunyang Palace had a clear understanding of the strength of their own sect, so they simply stated that everything would be based on the orders of the joint command of the major sect. From now on, Chunyang Palace would focus on staying in the sect to cultivate and wait for the command at any time. In fact, as Chunyang Palace had stated, except for the disciples of the Wanbao Tower, the disciples of Chunyang Palace who were responsible for daily duty in the sect and the branches, including the disciples of the Xintian sect who joined later, all stayed in their respective mountain gates. They didn't go out of the gate and behaved like well-behaved ladies. The sect of Chunyang Palace, which knew the current situation and played a good leading role, won the unanimous praise of the major sect. Although the sect's joint command had not yet been decided, everyone still spoke highly of Chunyang Palace's performance of taking the overall situation into account. Previously, some senior members of the sect had secretly complained about Chunyang Palace's acceptance of the former disciples of the Xintian sect. They always felt that such a great benefit was taken by an irrelevant small sect, and they always felt unwilling. Some even rubbed their hands in private, waiting to seize the weakness of Chunyang Palace and then teach them a hard lesson. But the current performance of Chunyang Palace immediately made those selfish guys give up. If they still wanted to find a bone in an egg, there was no need for Chunyang Palace to oppose them. It was estimated that the senior members of the major sect and even their own sect could directly crush them. Of course, Chunyang Palace was not completely indifferent to the outside world. At least, they would try to supply the 7 healing elixir. In addition to Yang Chen's own refining, Mo Chunmei was now able to refine 7th-grade medicinal pills with the power of the profound spirit furnace. Although the efficacy of a single medicinal pill was not necessarily as strong as that of Yang Chen's refining, almost 2 or 3 of them could also achieve the efficacy of Yang Chen's medicinal pill. In the eyes of the major sect, in the battle with the Zhao family, these low-generation disciples of the human immortal and earth immortal level basically had no decisive role. The final decisive battle must be the high-end forces. In Chunyang Palace, it was estimated that only Yang Chun and those Xian immortal masters, who numbered no more than 200, could come out. In this case, Chunyang Palace still cooperated like this, which showed that they were really cooperating. Therefore, all kinds of adverse rumors against Chunyang Palace were swept away in a short time, and no one mentioned it again. The focus of the major sect at the moment was the choice of the joint commander. All the sects wanted to let their own family take more responsibility, and they were fighting for the candidates in a mess. The Zhao family's lair in the original trial site, because of the Zhao family's retreat after destroying the Xintian sect, had all retreated to the demon realm with the Zhao family's team. The entire spiritual realm and the demon realm were connected by an entrance to the demon realm. The major sect had sent elite troops. In addition to a large number of Xian immortal masters, almost all the golden immortals of the mortal realm were concentrated at the entrance to the demon realm. Fortunately, they were just outside the entrance and did not find that the inside of the demon realm was being rapidly refined. After a short and fierce quarrel and various compromises, the candidate for the joint commander was finally determined. The Green Jade Immortal Island, the female-dominated sect that was the least infiltrated by the Zhao family, had the upper hand, and the current island master became the leader of the joint commander. The Taoist, Demon, and Rogue Cultivators Alliance each had a sect master who acted as the contact person for the parties. After the high-level consultation of the parties, dozens of Xian immortal masters worked together to refine a kind of communication magic weapon that allowed everyone to communicate instantly across hundreds of thousands of miles. It was distributed to the hands of the high-level members of the sect to facilitate unified command. The power of the major sect was fully gathered, and they shared a common enemy. This kind of communication magic weapon could communicate with each other, but there was also a way to find out some secrets of the other party through the magic weapon of the other party. Without enough trust, they would never agree to use it. This was why it was not successful before. What Sect Master Wu had always wanted to do was done by his descendants in less than 2 years after his death, but everything had nothing to do with the Mysterious Heaven sect. Ironically, it was because of the destruction of the Mysterious Heaven sect that everyone had a stronger sense of crisis and used this kind of communication magic weapon. Chunyang Palace also got a seat in the Joint Commander because of their well-behaved cooperation. Although they were at the bottom of the list, they only had a limited right to make suggestions and had no right to decide or veto, but at least they had the right to know more than other sects that did not have the opportunity to come in. The latest situation could be learned in the first place. Perhaps the arrangements of the major sects had enough deterrence, or perhaps the Zhao family had really suffered a great loss this time. At least during the period when the Joint Command was established, the Zhao family did not take advantage of the situation to attack, leaving enough time for the other parties. The Joint Commander thought that this was caused by the lack of strength of the Zhao family, but Yangchen knew very well that there were probably 2 reasons for this. One was that Big Brother Li Cheng once again successfully delayed the attack of the Zhao family. The other was that the 2 Dragon Clan masters wanted to do something more in refining the demon realm. Guessing some inside information, Yang Chun seized the time to refine the heaven's retribution and strengthen the strength of his side. At the same time, he did not forget to work with Gong's Sunling to refine as much of the demon realm as possible. As long as the refined space reached a certain level, the complete world of the demon realm could be united with the opponent's refining of the demon realm. Finally, in the midst of fear, the formation of the space barrier reached the end. When the last barrier was completely sealed, Yang Chen's family, including all the masters who had passed the Heaven Immortal tribulation, were all driven out of this world by an irresistible force and entered the next world. At this point, the Mountain River geographical map had successfully obtained the heaven's retribution of the spiritual realm. All the cultivators in the spiritual realm could cultivate normally and improve their realms normally. The quality and power of the Mountain River geographical map had once again been qualitatively improved. Chapter 23-25. The Zhao family was very cooperative and did not play any tricks during this period of time. Maybe they were tied down by brotherly Cheng. Of course, most of their attention should be attracted by the Joint Command. No one would care about a small sect that had just taken over most of the disciples of a strong sect and was still in the integration period. Previously, Yang Chun and Gong Sunling were either focused on their own cultivation or the formation of the space barrier. They didn't have the spare energy to pay attention to other things. Now that the dust had settled, they could finally relax and understand what was going on. After being repelled by the space barrier, Yang Chun and the others should be in the third layer of the Mountain River geographical map. The surrounding scenery looked very familiar, at least to Yang Chen's family and Madame Bai. It was obviously the graveyard from before. Nothing much had changed. Of course, there were still some small changes. Madame Bai didn't like the graveyard, so the tombstones and graves related to the graveyard had all disappeared. Only the two manors and the huge wasteland connecting them were left. They were currently in the manor where Madame Bai had stayed. The pavilions were still the same, but the wasteland outside was no longer ravaged by the heavenly tribulations. Madame Bai still treated herself as the owner. Perhaps she was used to living here and couldn't get rid of that familiarity. She warmly greeted everyone. The maids were like butterflies, serving everyone tea. It was like a big landlord's home in the mortal world. After quietly enjoying the fragrant tea, Yang Chun felt a wave of exhaustion. From the beginning to the end, he had persevered. Many of the heavenly tribulations made the people who saw him feel creeped out, not to mention the feeling of personally enduring them. The feeling of exhaustion that he had not felt for a long time made Yang Chun fall into a deep sleep in his seat. When he couldn't hide his snoring, everyone looked at Madame Bai in shock. He's been too tense these days. Madame Bai didn't have the slightest self-awareness. She explained nonchalantly, if he doesn't rest, it won't be a good thing. They were all cultivators at this level, so they had a deep understanding of the need for relaxation during cultivation. Yang Chen's ability to resist the most powerful heavenly tribulation from start to finish was indeed beyond everyone's imagination. Madame Bai had done something to the tea to make Yang Chen sleep. It was for Yang Chen's own good. Even though Yang Chen knew that there was something wrong with Madame Bai's tea, he still drank it without hesitation. His trust in Madame Bai made Madame Bai sigh. After all, Yang Chun was the strongest pill refinement master in the spiritual realm. What kind of medicinal herbs could hide from his senses? I'm afraid a good night's sleep won't be enough. As the cultivator with the highest cultivation base, Lin Jingyuan expressed his opinion in a timely manner. After that, he turned his head to Gao Yu and said, when he wakes up, take your sisters and let him relax for some time. It was obvious that he was going to command the family's ethics. Even though everyone was already a cultivator and didn't care much about the etiquette of mortals, hearing Lin Jingyuan's almost direct words, Gao Yu and the other women's faces couldn't help but turn red. But that wasn't all. Lin Jingyuan added, don't dual cultivate. Just let him relax. Completely relax, understand? In the end, he seemed to be worried about Gao Yu, a disciple of a prestigious sect. He stared at Lady Fanghua and the 30 concubines and said, use all your skills. Any technique will do. Don't cultivate. Just let him relax. Although the girls knew that Yang Chun needed to relax, They didn't expect Lin Jingyuan to take it so seriously. He even disregarded his status as a golden immortal and made such a shameful request. They nodded subconsciously, but looked at Lin Jingyuan in confusion, as if waiting for his explanation. It's a heavenly tribulation after all. Lin Jingyuan didn't say anything. Madame Bai said from the main seat, "Don't be fooled by his vigor now. In fact, he's exhausted. There are many advantages, but there are also many disadvantages. We have to let him relax completely. If it's not necessary, it's better not to let him do anything in the next 1 or 2 years." Only then did everyone realize the seriousness of the problem. This was the guidance of an infinite tribulation true immortal, not some half-baked nonsense. They immediately became nervous. "Don't worry, he'll be fine after this period." Madame Bai smiled and said, "After all, it's a heavenly tribulation. He endured it, so he'll get the corresponding benefits." After all, it was a heavenly tribulation 2 times in a row, but they expressed different meanings. So the girls slowly relaxed. In the past, except for Gong Sun Ling, none of the women persisted in the tribulation. Not to mention the girls, even Lin Jingyuan and Madame Bai didn't make it to the end. At most, they gave up after half of the time that Yang Chun had. Although Gong Sun Ling also persisted until the end, she was the owner of the geographical map of mountains and rivers. Later, she persisted in refining the demon realm. At most, she just transferred the power of the heavenly tribulation to refining the demon realm. It didn't sharpen her body very much. Only Yang Chun survived until the end with the help of the golden body incantation. At the same time, he was also refining the immortal chopping saber, the great yin yang 5 elements flying sword, and the golden bell. Later, he even participated in refining the immortal chopping platform. He was already on the verge of collapse. If it weren't for the timely formation of the space rampart, Yang Chun might have given up. Yang Chun slept for 2 months. They were no longer in the geographical map of mountains and rivers. Instead, they returned to the Dragon Palace, which was more comfortable. The disciples of Chunyang Palace had gained a lot this time. Almost all the disciples of the sect took turns to do closed-door training. The worst human immortal disciple had received a weakened heavenly tribulation experience. In the future, when they crossed the tribulation, they would have a better understanding and a higher success rate. After this time, the original disciples of Xiantian's sect had a sense of belonging to Chunyang Palace. They stayed in the sect to cultivate and strictly followed the instructions of the senior members of the sect. Soon, the sect had a new atmosphere. By refining the heavenly tribulation this time, Dilong not only successfully promoted to a real golden immortal, but also took the opportunity to refine the tens of thousands of Xian immortal monsters that he had swallowed when he followed Brotherly Chung. At the same time, he also refined a lot of the yellow spring collected in the Valley of No Return. His cultivation went straight to the middle stage of Almighty Immortal. The only pity was that such a huge heavenly tribulation did not improve Dilong's mind much. He still maintained the original muddle-headed state. However, it was also because of this that Dilong had no ambition at all. He still settled down to be the senior guardian of Chunyang Palace. The core mountain gate of Chunyang Palace could almost be said to be completely safe and sound. As long as the Zhao family was eliminated, no master could break through it. Chapter 23-26. Yang Chun finally woke up from his sleep. After getting the tea that Madame Bai had prepared for him, Yang Chun noticed that there was medicine in it to make him sleep better. However, Yang Chun didn't think much about it and drank it directly. After experiencing the heavenly tribulation for such a long time, he really needed to have a good sleep. "Husband, you're awake." As soon as he opened his eyes, Yang Chun heard Gao Yu's surprised voice. Yang Chun only had time to smile. Before he could answer, Gao Yu had already kissed him with her cherry lips. Gao Yu seemed to be very enthusiastic. With a few hot kisses, she successfully aroused Yang Chun's desire. It just so happened that Yang Chun also felt that there seemed to be a very strong energy in his body that needed to be vented. He immediately hugged Gao Yu's already half-naked body and kissed her back. "Husband, I want it." Gao Yu knew that there might be a problem with Yang Chen's body. How could she still care about her face as a woman? She was the first to take the initiative to ask Yang Chun to have sex with her. She even shamelessly asked not to dual cultivate and just wanted to live a normal married life. Of course, Yang Chun would satisfy the request of the person he loved the most. After a round of sex, Gao Yu was completely sent to the peak. Just as she was about to faint, Gong Sunling immediately began to take over. The evil fire in Yang Chen's body had not been vented at all. After Gong Sunling took over, she was also very enthusiastic. However, compared to Yang Chen's combat power, Gong Sunling was still not enough. In Yang Chen's high desire, his wives and concubines took turns to go into battle, and Yang Chun carried out a thorough and pure husband and wife relationship without any taste of cultivation. All the women experienced the purest peak without any taste of cultivation. However, Yang Chun was still like a tireless old bull, still working hard. In the end, he still had to rely on Lady Feng Hua and the 30 concubines who cultivated the 1,000-color spell. They used all their skills, and finally, in the second round, they let their husband vent his anger. However, this was not the end. Yang Chun did not stop there. Although part of the nefarious fire in his body had been released, it was still uncomfortable to hold it in. Not long after, the women had no choice but to accompany their prime minister to start another round of shamelessness. It was not known how long it took for Yang Chun to completely calm down. Under the effect of a large glass of 4C's mysterious coral liquid, he fell asleep peacefully. At this moment, Yang Chen's face was calm from the bottom of his heart. Seeing this scene, the girls finally felt relieved. They looked at each other and saw that all of them were naked. Sun Qingxue, who had a tender face, shouted and quickly put on her clothes and disappeared. Gao Yu and others were not willing to lag behind. They tidied up their clothes and returned to their rooms. Only the bold and unrestrained Lady Feng Hua and the 30 concubines did not care about their delicate bodies being exposed. They carefully helped their husband to scrub his body and sent him to the most comfortable bed. Then they slowly tidied themselves up. This time, Yang Chun slept for almost a month before he really woke up. When he woke up this time, Yang Chun had already noticed the changes in his body. Everything in the world, in his eyes, seemed to be more and more clear, and the levels were more and more abundant. It seemed that he had a different view of the spiritual world. When a real Xian immortal sees the spiritual world, there is naturally such a difference. In the past, Yang Chun only had the memory of the Xian immortal's experience in the immortal world, but he never felt that it was such a taste to stay in the spiritual world after the tribulation. It was a feeling that he could destroy the world with just a wave of his hand. It was completely different from before he had transcended the tribulation. It was no wonder that Zhou Shenglin became like that after he descended to the lower realm. The two pure combat cultivators, with insufficient mental state, had never tasted the taste of power. Once stained, they would be tempted by this feeling and become inner demons. Not only Zhou Sheng and Lin Zhongxuan, but even the golden immortals from the lower world of other sect had big and small problems. It was just that they were suppressed by Zhou Sheng and did not dare to express it too much. From this point of view, Zhou Sheng still played a positive role. After a little inspection of his body, the feeling of the golden body incantation almost reaching the small completion made Yang Chun ecstatic. The golden body incantation was completely refined by the heavenly tribulation from the beginning to the end, plus the refining of the physical body after the tribulation. The spiritual power that the current body can contain is almost 100 times more than before. Kwa Yi's secret method directly completed the first realm and began to cultivate the second realm. Even Yang Chun felt that as long as he gently flicked his finger, ordinary fairy immortals would probably be sent flying by him. His muscles were already extremely strong, plus the bones that had been refined by the heavenly tribulation. The power that burst out was enough to make Zenith Heaven Golden Immortals concede defeat. It was just that the strength had increased by 100 times, but the figure did not change much. On the contrary, it was more well-proportioned, no longer as strong as before. Yang Chen also knew very well how many crazy heavenly tribulations it took to complete the first realm of the Kwa Yi's secret method, which seemed simple but was as difficult as ascending to heaven. This kind of opportunity would probably not appear again in the future. Even if his cultivation improved and experienced the Xian Immortal Tribulation and Golden Immortal Tribulation, it would be impossible to cultivate the Kuai-Yi's secret method to the second realm. That was a realm that could only be reached after thousands of years of hard cultivation day and night. Unless Yang Chun could find the same opportunity in the immortal world with the help of countless heavenly tribulations. Ordinary power could no longer provide much help to Yang Chen's golden body incantation. After all, it was the unique power that only the heavenly tribulation could have. With a thought, the physical body of the golden bell appeared on his body. At this time, it seemed that the golden bell did not change much, but made Yang Chun feel that he and the golden bell were inseparable and had merged into one. But when he looked carefully, Yang Chun found that the golden bell still had great changes. Not to mention anything else, just the 8 Dragon Clan phantoms that originally hovered over Yang Chen's body had now completely become solid. As long as Yang Chun was willing, the 8 golden dragons could appear on his body at any time and anywhere. Usually, when Yang Chun was unwilling, the 8 golden dragons would become 8 lifelike tattoos, distributed all over Yang Chen's body. With the well-proportioned body that had cultivated the Kuai-Yi's secret method, one would feel that it was domineering at first glance. In the past, when it was still a phantom, it could already help Yang Chun resist the attack of the Xian Immortal level. Now that it had become a solid body, how strong the defensive ability would be, Yang Chun could know without thinking about it. It must be hundreds of times better. The immortal beheading saber quickly appeared in his hand, together with Xiao Tian. However, when Yang Chun saw Xiao Tian, he was also shocked by Xiao Tian. Xiao Tian, this guy, was actually already at the Golden Immortal level, which was a realm higher than Yang Chun. Chapter 23-27. Yang Chun could swear that Xiao Tian's advancement was absolutely sneaky. In Yang Chun's impression, Xiao Tian never appeared in front of everyone seriously, and then accepted the sacrificial refining of the heavenly tribulation. Although Xiao Tian had accepted the second Tianyuan Dan, even so, the Tianyuan Dan could not make him become a golden immortal. In addition to accepting the tempering of the Xian Immortal Tribulation and the baptism of the heavenly tribulation, Yang Chun couldn't think of any other opportunity for Xiao Tian, who had been by his side, to come into contact with the immortal tribulation. The problem was that this guy was promoted quietly, which made Yang Chun, the master, feel very embarrassed. After cultivating for so long, in the end, he was not as fast as a guy who knew how to devour the aura of the magic weapon every day. What was this? According to reason, Xiao Tian belonged to Yazi, and his combat effectiveness was also very considerable. Although it was not comparable to the pure dragon race, it was not much worse than those genius-level evildoers. It was just that since Yang Chun got Xiao Tian, he had never seen this guy take the initiative to fight. Every time, he appeared with Yang Chen's auxiliary means and never faced the enemy head-on. After passing this information to Xiao Tian in his mind, Xiao Tian soon lazily sent back a message that made Yang Chun not know whether to laugh or cry. Isn't it enough to kill people with you? Why should I do this? Besides, I am only responsible for the power of the magic weapon. Isn't it good? It was obviously the thinking of a lazy man, but this guy was still a Yazi. But on the other hand, if Yang Chun really indulged Xiao Tian and let him fight as he pleased, he was afraid that some scenes would be really difficult to control. No one knew better than Yang Chun how terrible a Yazi was when he was really angry. So, when he could not let Xiao Tian fight, he would try not to let him fight. Now it was good to just absorb the aura of various magic weapons and live a peaceful life. Xiao Tian seemed to be very satisfied with such a life. In this case, there was no need to make any changes. The Immortal Beheading Blade and the Immortal Beheading Stage had changed, but there was no special reflection. Even if it was a tribulation of that level, it only refined a small part of the entrance of the Immortal Beheading Stage and the mouth of the corpse. In the spiritual realm, no matter how powerful the heavenly tribulation was, it was just a piece of cake for the immortal slaying platform. Before refining the heavenly tribulation, the immortal executioner platform once again played an extremely important medium. The original door of the Immortal Executioner platform directly brought the spiritual power of the immortal world into the Mountain River geographical map. Otherwise, the Mountain River geographical map would have long been the same as the last time. Yang Chun had already transcended the Xian immortal tribulation. Under normal circumstances, he was a true golden immortal who had transcended the tribulation. However, Yang Chen's situation was slightly special. His true cultivation realm was only at the intermediate stage of the mysterious immortal realm, and it hadn't reached the standard of the golden immortal realm. Perhaps there had never been a freak like him in this world. Even Yang Chun himself did not know what level of cultivator he was. Of course, apart from those close to him, no one else knew about this. Even if someone told others about it, not many people would believe it. How could such an unimaginable situation appear? Everyone had their own gains. In just a few years, with the help of the refinement of the heavenly tribulation, and even a part of the heavenly essence pill's medicinal power was stimulated, everyone's cultivation rose rapidly. Zhou Xianying had officially become a golden immortal who had transcended the tribulation. After her strength surpassed the golden immortal realm, she had transcended the Xian immortal tribulation. She was still the one with the highest cultivation among Yang Chen's wives and concubines. The other women had also improved, but the highest cultivation was only Gong Sunling, who was at the peak of the Xian immortal realm. The others were almost at the late stage of the Xian immortal realm. Of course, they were all true Xian immortal experts. It wasn't that Gong Sunling couldn't improve, but she didn't want to improve so quickly. Relying on the Mountain River geographical map and the complete two worlds, Gong Sunling could directly catch up with Zhou Xianying. However, it was still not advisable to improve too quickly, even with the help of the Heavenly Essence pill. It was better to suppress it and stabilize it. The Murong sisters' new puppet, Elder Zheng's life treasure, also had many changes. After absorbing enough Xian immortal tribulation, the middle stage golden immortal puppet advanced to the late stage golden immortal. At that time, it would definitely surprise the enemy in battle. Comparatively speaking, the dragon race had the greatest improvements. Be it Ao Lan, Long Quang, or Ao Lai, they had all successfully transcended the Xian immortal tribulation and became true golden immortals. Just this point boosted Ao Lan's confidence. Even if he ran into the two dragon race experts of the Zhao clan, he wouldn't dare to say that he had absolute victory. At the very least, he could maintain an invincible golden body. Long Quang's cultivation was originally rather high, but this heavenly tribulation had saved him at least a few hundred years of familiarization and assimilation. Although he hadn't reached the stage where his spirit and body became one, he would be able to truly control his current physical body in a few hundred years at most. On the other hand, Ao Lai had been following the rules and cultivating steadily. Using the Heavenly Essence pill's medicinal power, he steadily reached the golden immortal realm. Only Lin Jingyuan and Madame Bai didn't have any obvious changes. Lin Jingyuan was a true golden immortal. Even with the help of the Heavenly Essence pill and the tempering of countless heavenly tribulations, he only rose by a small realm. At his level, if he wanted to raise his cultivation by a large margin, it wasn't something that could be done in a few years. As for Madame Bai and the rest, it was all because of Ancestor Lu's seal. No matter how much heavenly tribulations they absorbed, they still maintained the Xian immortal realm under the seal. Just from this point, one could see how strong Ancestor Lu's seal was. It was not something that an ordinary person could do without loosening under the baptism of that level of heavenly tribulation. Ancestor Lu had probably already considered all this back then, so he sealed the Xian immortal tribulation in the heavenly tribulation tomb. Ancestor Lu's strength could be seen from the seal, but the heavenly tribulation tomb was even more impressive. Just being able to seal the heavenly tribulation in a spatial magic treasure was not something that an ordinary cultivator could imagine. From this point of view, Yang Chen's ability to absorb some of the heavenly tribulations aura to refine the 7 emotions and 6 desires pill was nothing compared to Ancestor Lu. Of course, Yang Chen wasn't arrogant enough to compare himself with Ancestor Lu. But when he thought of this, Yang Chun also thought of the 7 emotions and 6 desires pill. Now that he had enough heavenly tribulation aura, it seemed like he could refine some 7 emotions and 6 desires pills in the spiritual realm. Since he was in the spiritual realm, the heavenly tribulation aura was naturally the worldly immortal tribulation, earthly immortal tribulation, and heavenly immortal tribulation. The pill was not the heavenly tribulation of the mortal world, so it was the spiritual realm's version of the 7 emotions and 6 desires pill. Presumably, many people would like this pill that had the same name as the mortal world. Chapter 23-28. This refining of the heavenly tribulation, it seemed that everyone had gained enough benefits. But Yang Chun was also very clear that because he had persisted from the beginning to the end under the power of the heavenly tribulation for a long time, there were still some hidden dangers. When exploring himself, Yang Chun found a problem. That was, his body seemed to have experienced a little damage after such a long time of the fierce tempering of the heavenly tribulation. After all, it was still a human body. Even if the cultivation of the golden body secret art was strong, it could not change this essence. The mental exhaustion had almost recovered after Madame Bai let him sleep and then wantonly have fun with the women, but these small injuries to the flesh body were not so simple. Yang Chun originally wanted to rely on the medicinal power of the 8th grade Lingji mushroom jade pill to forcibly recover. But Yang Chun soon discovered that his body had changed a little after the integration of the Golden Bell. The flesh body had been integrated with the Golden Bell, and the damage to the flesh body would inevitably affect the Golden Bell. Those small wounds that were extremely small in the body could be solved by the power of the medicinal pill, but the small damage on the Golden Bell could not be made up by the power of the medicinal pill. The most important thing was that this kind of small wound could not be found by Yang Chun's own spiritual awareness. After all, it was impossible for his own spiritual awareness to fully explore the inside of his body. At this time, the inner sensing pill that Yang Chun had used to temper his body in the mortal world once again entered the sight of Yang Chun. The 5th grade inner sensing pill was already the limit of pain that a cultivator could bear. Even if Yang Chun could refine the 7th grade or even the 8th grade inner sensing pill, the kind of medicinal pill that magnified his senses by hundreds of millions of times, even Yang Chun did not dare to try it easily. Not to mention anything else, just the slightest breathing and heartbeat sound was enough to make him faint under the power of the 8th grade inner sensing pill. Even if the cultivator was strong, there was no way to overcome these. If he wanted to repair these extremely small damages, it was necessary to accurately locate the location of these damages. The universe treasure-raising secret art was strong, but it also had to have a target. Therefore, improving the inner sensing pill has become Yang Chun's top priority now. Given Yang Chun's current state, it wouldn't matter even if he went out to fight at any time. However, an injury was an injury. After all, it would always be a hidden danger if he kept it. Several reclusive elders who were in charge of the Sutras Depository of Chunyang Palace were surprised to see their young palace master appear at the door of the sect's Sutras Depository. The current Sutra Depository of Chunyang Palace was no longer the simple Sutra Depository of Chunyang Palace. After inheriting the Sutra Depository of Xiantian sect, it could almost be said to be the largest Sutra Depository with the most books in the spiritual realm. The elders in charge of the Sutras Depository were still the few reclusive elders who were in charge of the Sutras Depository of the Xiantian sect. Under the arrangement of Sect Master Li, they became loyal disciples of the Chunyang Palace. During this heavenly tribulation feast, they were able to enjoy a large number of earthly immortal tribulations. The palace master of the Chunyang Palace was very respectful to the newly joined elders, and, at the same time, he trusted them very much. The Sutra Depository of the sect was an important place related to the inheritance of the sect. In addition to letting the former Elder Gung manage it in name, the manpower used was still the hands of the old people of the Xiantian sect. In addition to the Sutra Depository, there was another place, which was the secret pavilion of the sect. After the merger of the secret pavilion of the Xiantian sect and the Chunyang Palace, It was also under the responsibility of several Xian immortal elders of the Xintian sect. Even the Tiangang elders, the palace master did not guard against them and directly brought them to his side. Their duties were exactly the same as in the Xintian sect, responsible for the safety of the sect master. This kind of behavior that did not hide and even put their own safety directly under the control of the other party was obviously much stronger than a few words of trust. These 2 points alone were enough to make the Xian immortal masters of the Xintian sect submit. Now, whether it was the sutra depository of the sect or the secret pavilion, they were all in the belly of the earth dragon, the safest place. On the surface in the mountain gate, at most, some ordinary things were placed. The real core good things were all here. Only after becoming a core disciple of the Chunyang Palace could they have the opportunity to come here to exchange for the corresponding things according to their own contribution to the sect. Of course, Yang Chun did not have this problem. With his status and contribution to the sect, even if he exchanged all the things, no one would say anything. But even so, when Yang Chun faced these hidden elders, he was still respectful and meticulously followed the rules. This kind of respect shown in the most subtle places was more comfortable than all verbal expressions. At least these new elders of the Sutra Depository all let Yang Chun in with a satisfied smile, and there was even an elder accompanying him. After all, most of them were the treasures of the Xintian sect. Yang Chun couldn't find anything good even if he wanted to, so he had to rely on these old people. The Sutra Depository of the Xintian sect was definitely several levels higher than the one in the Chunyang Palace back then. In terms of security level alone, it was not known how far ahead the Sutra Depository of the Chunyang Palace was. When Yang Chun looked at the portal in front of him that was flashing with blue light like a vertical lake, even if he was also considered a rich person, he could not help but marvel at the generosity of the Xintian sect. This kind of formation was clearly a space ceiling formation that even the Big Dipper elders would have a headache with. Not to mention other things, just in terms of safety, even if a few golden immortals came, they would not be able to do anything about this formation in a short period of time. The Xintian sect was able to protect the core mountain gate from the Zhao family's dragon trap formation because of the power of these core mountain guarding formations. Of course, these formations were not without their flaws. The biggest problem was that the area they covered was too small. They only covered a radius of a mere 50 kilometers. 100 miles was not enough to protect all the disciples of the Xintian sect, but it was enough for the Sutra Depository. This formation alone was enough to see the foundation of the Xintian sect. It was not something that a nouveau riche like the Chunyang Palace could compare with. If it were not for their good luck this time, even if the Chunyang Palace developed for hundreds of thousands of years, it might not have the style of the Xintian sect. Following the elder into the portal, it was like walking through a mirror. Even though Yang Chun had experience in the immortal world, he had never been to the core center of a sect of this level. Now, he felt that it was a bit of an eye-opener. Yang Chen's performance made the elder who led the way very satisfied. Yang Chen's attitude was good, and he gave him a lot of face. However, the eye-opening look that he showed at this time really made them feel a sense of accomplishment. When he really saw the scale of the inside of the Sutra Depository, even Yang Chun could not help but widen his eyes. He looked speechlessly at the endless shelves and the neatly arranged jade slips on them. For a moment, he could not say anything. What was the foundation of a big sect? This was it. Chapter 23-29. Young Palace Master, what do you want to find? Yang Chun gave him face, and these new elders also gave him face. Their tone was cordial, and they asked in a businesslike manner, but their expressions gave people a feeling of intimacy and familiarity, which was very comfortable. It was obvious that these elders were also proficient in this field. Not long ago, they enjoyed a big meal of the heavenly tribulation. Although it was only the earth immortal tribulation, there was an unlimited supply. As long as you could take it, you would be given as much as you could. This kind of benefit was impossible to have even in the mysterious heaven sect. This move alone made the original disciples of the mysterious heaven sect look at the small sect of Chunyang Palace with admiration. Chunyang Palace could develop to the present in a short time, and there was indeed a reason for it. The mutual admiration of both sides was a major prerequisite for the integration. If those disciples of the mysterious heaven sect only saw that Chunyang Palace was in a dilapidated state, they would not have a sense of belonging so easily. It was precisely because of the endless surprises of Chunyang Palace that they completely recognized it. This disciple wants to find some of the experiences of the predecessors in alchemy. In front of these veteran guys, Yang Chun did not put on his prestige as the young palace master. He claimed to be a disciple, and his posture was full. Even the intention was clear. This disciple thought of a kind of medicinal pill that can detect the subtle damage caused by cultivation in my body, but there are some side effects, so I need to refer to the previous practices and ideas of the predecessors. Yang Chen's problem was actually not his alone. As long as it was a cultivator with spiritual power flowing in the body, there might be problems like this. So when it came to this, the elder who led the way also became interested. This way, one couldn't fly casually in the scripture's pavilion. If one accidentally pushed down a few shelves, it would be a small disaster. The elder made a gesture of invitation and then took the lead with Yang Chun to walk in a direction. What kind of method is it, and what are the side effects? When walking, the elder did not forget to ask. Obviously, he was also very interested in this. This is the 5th grade inner sensing pill. Yang Chun felt that what he said, he was afraid that he wouldn't be able to explain it clearly in a short time. So it was more realistic to go straight to the facts. He directly took out a bottle of the 5th grade inner sensing pill and handed it to the elder. It must be taken in an absolutely quiet and undisturbed formation. It can magnify the senses more than 10,000 times and can explore the situation in the body, but it will also bring great pain. The inner sensing pill was a low-level medicinal pill of the monster race, and it was carried forward in the hands of Yang Chun. However, even so, in the mortal world, it would at most be used before the nascent soul, and at most 3 transformations. Few cultivators could bear stronger medicinal pills. Even Yang Chen's wives and concubines, after trying some of the 4th grade inner sensing pills, were never mentioned again. The pain it brought could be imagined. The elder was very interested and took the initiative to reach out and take the elixir that Yang Chun handed over. It must be known that after Yang Chun arrived in the spiritual world, only in the first few hundred years would he refine the 5th revolution medicinal pill. Now, it was all the 7th revolution medicinal pills. This inner sensing pill was still only at the 5th revolution. I am afraid that the pain caused by the inner sensing pill mentioned by Yang Chun must be far beyond the imagination of ordinary people. To profound immortal experts like them, it was also an opportunity to challenge the 5th revolution pill concocted by Yang Chun. Who didn't know of Grandmaster Yang's authority in alchemy? Perhaps what Yang Chun said had been discounted. They just didn't know what the real situation was. Everything could only wait until they found the thing with Yang Chun first. This is it. The two of them walked on the path between the densely packed shelves for almost 4 hours. According to their footsteps, they had already walked for more than 50 miles. Only then did the leading elder point at a green shelf and said, "These are all." Yang Chun glanced at it. These green shelves were at least tens of miles in radius. There were tens of thousands of jade slips on each shelf. If they were all red, the number would probably exceed hundreds of millions. Were so many things that he wanted to see? Yang Chen's face couldn't help but show an unbelievable expression of surprise. "These are all." The elder who led the way smiled. What he wanted to see the most was this kind of expression of Yang Chun. Now he finally got his wish. If other disciples want to see it, they have to find out which one they want to see in the hall at the door according to the rules. After they come up with enough contribution points to the sect, they can take the jade slips to the reading area to study. They must not take it out. The elder said with a smile, "However, you are an exception. You can read whatever you want here. It's not good to break the rules like this, right?" Yang Chun had a smile on his face, but he asked, "It doesn't matter. If others have the ability to make alchemy like you, they also have this privilege. This is also the rule of the previous Xiantian sect. It is the same in our Chunyang Palace." The elder replied very casually, In this old man's opinion, that female alchemist disciple of yours will soon have this qualification. The elder's casual answer had already exposed some of his cognition. He called Chunyang Palace as our Chunyang Palace, but he called Xiantian sect as the previous Xiantian sect. It was clear at a glance that they were close to each other. After Yang Chun thanked the elder left, leaving Yang Chun alone in this large collection of books to find the content he was interested in. In the past, when Sect Masterly was still an elder, he gave Yang Chun a batch of various alchemy experiences left by the past alchemists of Chunyang Palace. However, Sect Masterly was selfish at that time. He chose the good things left by the famous alchemists in history, so there were not many of them. There were only thousands of jade slips. But now what Yang Chun saw was more than hundreds of millions of pieces, all famous and unknown. As long as they had a unique understanding of a certain kind of alchemy, they were qualified to be stored in the Sutra's depository. Such a large number of works on alchemy, for Yang Chun, was simply a big tonic soup. Yang Chun almost used a kind of impatient mood to quickly search for the jade slips from the shelf. Each jade slip concentrated the unique insights of an alchemist in a certain direction. For Yang Chun, this was definitely a good thing to make up for his shortcomings in alchemy, just like the huge amount of medicinal dregs in the medicine nourishing gourd. Even if Yang Chun now had the ability to refine 8-grade medicinal pills, this kind of predecessor's experience that could broaden his knowledge of alchemy was exactly what he urgently needed. Perhaps some people would focus on the experience left by those well-known alchemists, but Yang Chun was very clear that many unknown alchemists, especially some who seemed to specialize in only 1 or 2 kinds of medicinal pills in their lifetime, would leave the experience in the field they were good at, which was the most attractive. Chapter 23:30. After waking up, there was only a slight muffled groan, and then he fainted and then woke up in pain. The elder fainted and woke up in this severe pain, waking up and fainting in the cycle until the medicinal effect of the inner sensing pill was completely gone. Or most cultivators and alchemists thought so. This was why in the immortal world, there were still many talented alchemists who could only stop at the 8th grade alchemist master level. However, the elder who led the way took the 5th grade inner sensing pill given by Yang Chun. After discussing with several elders who also protected the scriptures pavilion, they simply arranged a formation to prevent interference. Then one of the elders sat in it and took a 5th grade inner sensing pill. They were all cultivators who didn't understand the benefits of this. The changes in their companions made them understand that the benefits of this medicinal pill were definitely great, but there would also be great suffering. No wonder Yang Chun would find a way to improve it. If this trend continues, after Yang Chun refined the 7th grade inner sensing pill, maybe the person who took the pill would be directly killed by the pain before the medicinal effect passed. With Yang Chun's great principle, golden, immortal spiritual awareness, it was not a time-consuming thing to clearly remember the contents of these jade slips. Basically, as long as the spiritual awareness explored it once, it was equivalent to Yang Chun having read it once and deeply remembered it in his mind. Eagerly absorbing the experience of these predecessors, Yang Chun was almost immersed in it and did not know the passage of time. Others also knew what Yang Chun was doing, and no one came to disturb him. Hundreds of millions of jade slips. If you want to read them one by one, I am afraid that you won't be able to read much in 100 years. Fortunately, all the information was engraved in the jade slips with spiritual awareness. If you want to understand the content, you only need to use your spiritual awareness to explore and read. Compared with reading with your eyes, it was not known how many times faster it was. Yang Chun always felt that this kind of basic and professional knowledge was what the alchemists should focus on. They should not only focus on the refining of some high-grade medicinal pills. Even if they could refine it successfully, there would only be some alchemists, and they would not be able to achieve anything. They really couldn't think of any other cultivator who could withstand such a medicinal power. Of course, they couldn't believe that when they were still in the mortal world, Yang Chun had already used this kind of medicinal pill as a tool to temper himself. There were still medicinal pills given by Yang Chun, but there were few elders who wanted to try it again. Yang Chun was already studying it. They would rather wait for Yang Chun to develop an improved version and then use it. The elder finally struggled to keep his life, at least in the eyes of others. However, after the effects of the medicine had passed, the elder did not immediately undo the formation. Instead, he sat on the spot and began to cultivate with his eyes closed. This went on for several days. When the elder finally opened his eyes, even his companions, who were watching from the outside, could sense the changes in his body without using their divine senses to investigate. But when the elder finally opened his eyes, even the few companions who were watching outside, without special spiritual awareness exploration, found the changes in him. But as soon as he screamed, the consequences brought about by the 5 grades inner sensing pill amplified by 10,000 times was that the elder directly felt that his eardrums were about to be torn. The huge sound rushed directly into his mind, and then he completely fainted. If he could stay in a state of unconsciousness, it would be a kind of happiness. But soon he was awakened by the kind of blood flow in his body, as if there were thousands of knives tearing the blood vessels. Just this torture almost made the Shin Immortal Master lose half of his life. And it also surprised the other companions who were watching outside the formation for a long time. No wonder Yang Chun said that the side effects were very big. This was not a normal side effect. This was fatal. Sect Masterly thought that as long as he gave Yang Chun the experience of the most famous alchemist masters, it would be the best. But he was not an alchemist master, and didn't know how precious the things left by these unknown alchemist masters were. It was a very comfortable performance of whole-body health, as if many impurities in the elder's body had been eliminated, giving people a feeling of incomparable freshness. Although it may not bring much improvement in the realm of cultivation, it brought more potential for the future. Of course, these repetitions and contradictions were not common. The most common was the extreme research on some single medicinal pills, which made Yang Chun happy to the bone. Many of Yang Chun's previous understandings had undergone earth-shaking changes after reading these jade slips. Of course, it was to a more professional and in-depth aspect. This also meant that Yang Chun would learn these experiences and lessons in the future alchemy, and from then on, make his own medicinal pills more outstanding. The 5 grades inner sensing pill was used by Yang Chun to temper the yellow turban strongman body refining technique. Without the strong body brought by the yellow turban strongman body refining technique, even a Shin Immortal Master could not withstand the extreme pain caused by the magnification of the senses by 10,000 times. Unknowingly, Yang Chun didn't know that he had made a lot of progress in alchemy. Although he had been reading books so far and had not refined a furnace of medicinal pills. In just a short time of less than half a cup of tea, the elder who had taken the medicine could no longer bear the pain of being cut by 1,000 knives and directly screamed. However, Yang Chun was now immersed in the sea of books and had no time to care about what was happening outside. In the eyes of Yang Chun, the jade slips that recorded the experiences of the predecessors were 100 times more important than the things outside. It was a kind of research result that had been researched to the extreme in a certain direction. For Yang Chun at this stage, it was definitely something that could only be encountered. But such things in the scriptures pavilion left by the profound heaven sect, there were at least 100,000 of them. When the number was large, it was inevitable that there would be repetition in some aspects, and there would even be diametrically opposed conclusions on some issues. These were not big problems. What Yang Chun wanted was just a reference. The direction of these debates just gave him one more way to solve the problem. The harvest in the scriptures pavilion this time was definitely an unexpected surprise, which Yang Chun did not expect before. As Yang Chun read more and more jade slips, Yang Chun became more and more proficient in the refining and fire control of various medicinal pills, and even the subtle effects of various medicinal pills. It was not an exaggeration to describe Yang Chun's current mood as if he had found a treasure. Therefore, Yang Chun has now abandoned all other thoughts and is completely immersed in the experience of this massive number of predecessors. Yang Chun often stood on the edge of a shelf, and then his spiritual awareness directly shrouded all the jade slips placed on the shelf, reading all the contents of nearly 10,000 jade slips at one time. Chapter 23:31 Yang Chen's state did not make the women and those who cared about him nervous. On the contrary, they were relieved. Madame Bai had advised Yang Chen after refining the heaven tribulation. After all, it was a heaven tribulation. In addition to taking a good rest and relaxing, it was better not to do anything in these 2 years. Even the best state was not to deliberately cultivate. Cultivation also paid attention to the combination of work and rest, and also paid attention to tension and relaxation. When refining the heaven tribulation, Yang Chen was too tense. The Zhao family did not leave much time for Yang Chen and Gong Sunling, so Yang Chen was racing against time. Otherwise, he would not have persisted from the beginning to the end. This was Madame Bai's advice. Those who knew Madame Bai believed her. As an infinite tribulation, true immortal, her knowledge was definitely more extensive than that of Yang Chen before his rebirth. Her evaluation of cultivation was almost the truth in the spiritual realm. Everyone was worried that Yang Chen would cultivate harder because of the months of sleep and indulgence. They even prepared some words of persuasion. Unexpectedly, Yang Chen plunged into the Sutras depository and began to read medical books, which made everyone feel relieved and saved them a lot of trouble to persuade him. The Zhao family's current situation was unknown to everyone, and they did not know when they would launch a general attack. But one thing was certain. No matter how powerful the Zhao family was, after destroying the Xintian sect, they had suffered a great loss. At least those golden immortals needed some time to recover. This gave the Joint Command and Xunyang Palace a lot of time, and Yang Chen could take advantage of this time to completely refine the Heaven Tribulation Cemetery. The Mountain River geographical map had a complete Heaven Tribulation of the spiritual realm, and even the mysterious Immortal Tribulation of the immortal realm. This also meant that the cultivators in the Mountain River geographical map did not have to worry about the lack of room for improvement. In fact, millions of cultivators have begun to pass the human Immortal Tribulation to improve their realm. The Earthen Immortal Tribulation and Heavenly Immortal Tribulation were also triggered by the corresponding cultivators. In addition to Yang Chen's group, there were at least several thousand experts who had ascended to the third layer of the immortal plane. Among these ascending experts, in addition to those Xian immortal experts who were previously collected by the Mountain River geographical map, most of them were high-level demonic beasts collected after refining the demon world. In the demon realm, demon beasts didn't have the chance to trigger a heavenly tribulation. Even Xian immortal-level demon beasts wouldn't be able to trigger a heavenly tribulation in the demon realm. This was previously decided by the heavenly Tao. It could be said that regardless of whether it was the demon realm or the demon realm, the creatures that were infected by demon qi and demon qi were all abandoned by the heavenly Tao. However, it was different in the Mountain River geographical map. It directly gave these monsters a new opportunity. Just like those demonized monsters in the devil realm, the heavenly tribulation in the Mountain River geographical map purified the devil qi and monster qi in their bodies, allowing them to proudly restore their normal sanity and become a real cultivator. The higher the level of the cultivator inside, the more powerful the Mountain River geographical map would be. From this point of view, the Mountain River geographical map naturally had greater potential and advantages than the space magic weapon owned by the Dragon Clan master of the Zhao family. However, now Yang Chen didn't have time to pay attention to the changes in the Mountain River geographical map. He was already immersed in the vast ocean of alchemy knowledge and could not extricate himself. He eagerly absorbed the experience left by each predecessor, and there was nothing else in his mind except these. The women wanted to see Yang Chen, but they were blocked by several old-fashioned guardian elders of the Scriptures Pavilion. Yang Chen had such authority and qualifications, but not necessarily the women, so they could only ask the head of the palace to come forward and look at the state of Yang Chen from a distance. After knowing that Yang Chen was safe, they were relieved. Yang Chen really benefited a lot during this time. Since comprehending the essence of the merit chapter of alchemy, Yang Chen had rarely felt that he was improving by leaps and bounds in alchemy. That feeling could be comparable to the excitement when he first got the medicine nourishing gourd and began to analyze the piles of medicinal dregs. The medicine-nourishing gourd only made Yang Chun have a more detailed understanding of the various stages of each medicinal material. What he had learned before made Yang Chun have the foundation of various medicinal materials pharmacology. But after reading these books this time, Yang Chun really had a great understanding of the pharmacology of various medicinal materials and the refining techniques of various medicinal pills. It was a thorough understanding of the various changes of each medicinal pill and a certain medicinal effect that was magnified to the extreme. Yang Chun always thought that he was already a real 8th grade alchemist master because he could successfully refine 8th grade medicinal pills. However, after seeing less than half of these collections, Yang Chun had already realized very clearly that he was at best just a half-bottle vinegar. There is still a gap between the real 8th grade alchemist master and the peak of the abyss. Of course, this was also Yang Chun's self-deprecation. In fact, even in the immortal world, more than 99% of the 8th grade alchemist masters have not reached the current level of Yang Chun. However, the opponents that Yang Chun used to compare were too incredible, which made him feel a little inadequate. His reference object was not the alchemy master Mo Chunmei in his previous life, but the great master of the true immortal level that he was fortunate to meet in this life. He even looked forward to whether he could catch up with the back of the 3 pure Tao ancestors on the road of alchemy. Compared with these people, he naturally felt the gap. But this gap did not make Yang Chun retreat, but it made Yang Chun have a greater fighting spirit. Learning and then knowing the shortcomings, this was the hope of upward improvement. If you don't even know where the gap is, then how can you talk about catching up? The treasures of the profound heaven sect gave Yang Chun hope to catch up with these great masters. For a time, Yang Chun even forgot his original intention was to come in and read some ancient books to refer to the original intention of improving the inner sensing pill. Yang Chun was absorbing knowledge here, forgetting to eat and sleep, but the Zhao family was in another tense situation. The emergence of the Joint Command allowed the major sect to finally unite successfully. When the strength of the major sect was really united, even the Zhao family had to be careful. In terms of the results of the battle, the Zhao family and the united sect could basically be said to be equal. Although the Zhao family destroyed the profound heaven sect, the Zhao family had to give up their own nest. The losses of the masters on both sides were also equal. The united sect lost a great principal golden immortal, but the Zhao family also lost 7 or 8 golden immortals, which was basically even. At this point, the major sect no longer secretly turned to the Zhao family. Although a lot of half-hearted sect members were lost, the power of the united sect was integrated. It could be said that in the comparison of the strength of the two sides, everyone was almost at the same level. Chapter 2332. Strictly speaking, the Zhao family seemed to be slightly weaker because almost all the golden immortal masters of the Zhao family were injured, and they had not fully recovered after a few years. This was one of the reasons why the Zhao family did not start and gave Yang Chun a chance. There were other reasons, but Yang Lan, who was in the Zhao family and thought that he was also a core high-level member, did not know. Originally, he wanted to get a batch of 7th grade healing elixirs to treat those injured golden immortal masters through his control of Yang Chun. But this time, his control of the great unrestrained Demon Heart Sutra failed. The instructions sent out did not get any response. If he could not still feel that his seeds of spiritual awareness had not been dispersed, Yang Lan would have suspected that he had been seen through by Yang Chun. Finally, from the hearts of other puppets, he knew that while Chunyang Palace cooperated with the Joint Command, the entire sect was in retreat on a large scale waiting for the command, which saw the mystery in his heart. No matter how strong the great unrestrained Demon Heart Sutra was, it was the most effective control when everyone was in the same realm. Now Yang Lan was in the demon realm, and Yang Chun was in the spiritual realm. They had crossed a realm and were bound to be affected. What made Yang Lan even more speechless was that almost all the cultivators in the spiritual realm knew how abnormal the core mountain gate of Chunyang Palace was. Dozens of sect-level immortals' caves were nested. Needless to say, Yang Chun must be in the innermost core. Yanglan's great unrestrained demon heart sutra was not so good that it could cross 2 realms and penetrate dozens of space immortals' caves. It was normal that Yangchun could not receive his instructions. The Black Tortoise Academy was exposed early, and they didn't even have time to wait for the 7th grade Lingji Mushroom Jade Pill book from Yangchun before they had to flee to the Zhao family, so they didn't have a few top-quality healing medicinal pills in their hands. What was even sadder was that the 8th grade alchemist from the Immortal realm died in Zhou Shang's hands a long time ago, leaving only a few pills, so the Zhao family was in such an awkward situation now. From this point of view, Zhou Shang could also be considered to have made a great contribution. Of course, it was highly possible that Zhou Shang got the inspiration after discovering that Elder Zheng, the Great Wilderness Sect's level 8 alchemist, had been killed. Speaking of Elder Zheng, it was an indisputable fact that Elder Zheng had died at the hands of the Black Tortoise Academy when they defected to the enemy. Previously, there was already a huge suspicion against Lu Wuji. Now, no one would even think of reversing the verdict for Black Tortoise Academy's Lu Wuji. On the other hand, the Golden Immortal from the Black Tortoise Academy, after fleeing from the academy with serious injuries, awkwardly discovered that he had nowhere to go. Although this Zenith Heaven Golden Immortal swore to prove that the betrayal of Xuanwu Academy was only caused by the great elder of Xuanwu Academy to seek revenge for his son Lu Wuji, and that he and the Xuanwu Academy in the Immortal world had nothing to do with the Zhao family. But at this point, the Joint Command did not dare to easily believe an expert from Xuanwu Academy. Fortunately, when everyone joined forces to enter the Demon Realm, this Golden Immortal expert even killed a Golden Immortal from the Zhao family who was severely injured by Zhou Shang. Because of this, he was not suspected to be related to the Zhao family. But the current situation also made the Joint Command very difficult. After all, he was a Golden Immortal who had crossed the tribulation. It was impossible to abandon such a combat power for no reason. But no matter which sect did not dare to give absolute trust, the position of the Golden Immortal Master seemed extremely awkward. Especially at this time, he was seriously injured. Even if there was a 7th grade Lingji Mushroom Jade Pill, the effect on him, a master from the Immortal world, was limited. It could only be useful like Lin Zhongshuan before, but it would take a long time to recover. Even if there was a sect interested in him, it would take a great price to make him recover. But what could be done after recovery? There was still the Xuanwu Academy in the Immortal world, and it was impossible for him to turn to another sect. Who was willing to pay that price for him? After thinking about it, there was no proper arrangement for all parties. At this time, as the head of the Joint Command, the Island Master of the Green Jade Immortal Island looked at Chunyang Palace. The representative of Chunyang Palace in the Joint Command was Yangqin's master ancestor, Wang Yong. Master Ancestor Wang Yong did not get the Tianyuan pill for a long time, so his cultivation did not increase explosively. He was still at the Earth Immortal level. Among the representatives of the major sect, he seemed insignificant. In addition, Chunyang Palace basically only had the right to know. He basically listened more and spoke less on the Joint Command side. Even if he spoke, he would directly agree with the leader's opinion. His role was similar to a wooden man. When discussing the appropriate way to deal with the Golden Immortal Master of the Xuanwu Academy, everyone's eyes followed the leader's gaze and looked at Master Ancestor Wang Yong. Perhaps it was a good idea to place him in Chunyang Palace. Not to mention anything else, if there was a sect in the spiritual world that could easily afford the healing elixir, it must be Chunyang Palace. It was not that the major sect couldn't afford this price, it was really that they didn't have the cost of Chunyang Palace. After all, the alchemist Yangchun was from Chunyang Palace. In terms of the cost of the elixir alone, it could be several times lower than that of the major sect. As for other things, Chunyang Palace had 2 characteristics that satisfied all the joint sect. One was that it was obedient and took the overall situation into consideration, and the other was that it had a sense of propriety. In other words, these 2 characteristics could be regarded as one advantage when combined. After accepting the huge number of disciples and heritage of the Xiantian sect, Chunyang Palace had done a very satisfactory job. Knowing that everyone would be vigilant, without saying a word, it forced all the new and old disciples to do closed-door training, so as not to cause trouble for everyone. This alone made everyone's satisfaction soar. Even if those former disciples of the Xintian sect had any tricks up their sleeves, after dealing with the Zhao family, with the cooperation of the Chunyang Palace, they would not be afraid of those guys jumping into the sky. The most important advantage was that Chunyang Palace did not pose a threat to everyone. Chunyang Palace could be regarded as a nouveau riche, but it was only a nouveau riche. Compared with the previous Chunyang Palace, it was a step to the sky, but compared with the major sect, it was not a little worse in terms of foundation. Since this sect had so many advantages, it seemed that it was appropriate to place the golden immortal expert of the Xuanwu Academy in Chunyang Palace. In the battle with the Zhao family, the strength that Chunyang Palace could contribute was limited, so treating this golden immortal expert was one of them. As soon as the leader put forward this idea, almost all the representatives of the sect agreed. The only one who did not raise any opinion was Wang Yong of the Chunyang Palace, but he also directly expressed that he would follow the order of the Joint Command and carry it out to the letter. Therefore, before Yang Chun came out of the Sutras Pavilion of the sect, the golden immortal elder of the Xuanwu Academy, surnamed Yao, was sent to Chunyang Palace. At this time, Chunyang Palace also really showed the style of its nouveau riche. As soon as Elder Yao arrived, he had just settled down, and the palace master personally held 107th grade Lingji mushroom jade pills in front of him. Chapter 23:33. Elder Yao had seen the big world. He was a golden immortal who had crossed the tribulation in the lower realm of the immortal world. He had seen countless good things in the immortal world. But even so, Elder Yao was shocked by the local tyrant style of Chunyang Palace. 100 top, grade 7 grade, Lingji mushroom jade pills were given to him as jelly beans. Even the water used to send the pills was not ordinary water. It was not even water. It was a large cup of 4C's mysterious coral liquid. How could Elder Yao not know what this thing was good for the body? But which big sect would get these things? They would not carefully use them for alchemy or medicine for the disciples of the sect. Even if it was purely used for drinking, a few drops could wash away the impurities in the body. He had never heard of using a jade cup like a big sea bowl just to wash the medicinal pills into the belly. This was not the palace master's intention to win over this golden immortal master. It was purely to give face to the Joint Commander and do a favor. To be honest, after this incident, the immortal world's Xuanwu Academy was already the same as the profound heaven sect. Without the spiritual world's Xuanwu Academy, it directly became a powerless successor. The Xuanwu Academy did not have the prestige of the heavenly court like the profound heaven sect, and its decline was already inevitable. But the palace master wanted to do things to the extreme, not only to spend a lot of effort to treat, but also to do the best. The 4C's mysterious coral liquid was based on this starting point. Eating too many medicinal pills at once would be too much. But for the golden immortal who crossed the tribulation, 107th grade Lingji mushroom jade pills were not enough to make him have that kind of regret. The medicinal power was not enough to make up for it. How could it be too much? The 4C's mysterious coral liquid could neutralize the medicinal power of 100 medicinal pills, and there would not be a sudden problem of the medicinal power being too strong. This was a great benefit to Elder Yao's injury. This was clear to the palace master, and Elder Yao was even clearer. Of course, he knew the value of the medicinal pills and the 4C's mysterious coral liquid in front of him. After thanking the head of the palace very sincerely, Elder Yao took these medicinal pills with the 4C's mysterious coral liquid in several batches. At this sensitive time, it was more important for him to recover quickly than anything else. Not to mention how much he could contribute in the battle against the Zhao family after he recovered from his injuries. He didn't have to worry about his safety anymore. The Zhao family would never allow a lone golden immortal expert to slowly recover. Even if it was for the sake of his own life, Elder Yao had to do everything he could to recover from his injuries. As for owing a favor to Chunyang Palace, it was a trivial matter. As long as he was alive, he would be able to return any kind of favor. The Joint Command had already begun to send experts into the demon realm to search for the location of the Zhao family's final nest. If possible, they would try to assassinate as many important figures of the Zhao family as possible. Now is not the time to preserve their strength. Any slight advantage could be the straw that broke the camel's back in the future. Although the moment of the decisive battle had yet to arrive, the atmosphere of war was already becoming more and more intense. In addition to the disciples of Chunyang Palace, who were obedient and restrained, waiting for orders behind closed doors, the masters of other sects began to rub their hands and wait for the outbreak of the war. At this time, Yang Chun finally finished reading the hundreds of millions of jade slips and walked out of the scripture pavilion. It had been 3 years since the end of the refinement of the tomb. For about 2.5 years of the 3 years, Yang Chun had been reading the alchemy notes in the scripture pavilion without eating or sleeping. Countless research directions and results related to alchemy had given Yang Chun a new understanding of alchemy. It was a kind of bone-deep understanding of the pharmacology of various medicinal herbs. His proficiency in the combination of different medicinal herbs was as if he had been reborn. He had a completely new understanding of every kind of medicinal pill that he thought he had mastered in the past. Similarly, Yang Chun was more proficient in mastering the essence of alchemy in the merit chapter. At least after this new understanding, Yang Chun had a clear understanding of why the merit chapter could effectively control the success rate of alchemy or improve the efficacy of the elixir. No matter how powerful the merit chapter was, in the final analysis, alchemy was still inseparable from the scope of alchemy. It was just that the merit chapter had strengthened a certain direction. In the past, Yang Chun did not thoroughly recognize these aspects, let alone the principles. Now, after the edification of these hundreds of millions of experiences, Yang Chun finally touched the edge. Yang Chun had understood the accurate control of medicinal materials and the proportion of medicinal effects a long time ago, and now there were many new truths. For example, what kind of fire seed was used for a certain kind of medicinal material to stimulate the strongest effect at what kind of fire, which was also the simplest kind of cognition. However, only Yang Chun could do this. Only Yang Chun's yin-yang heaven-burning fire could simulate any fire seed in the whole world. In addition, it seemed that only Mo Chunmei, who had the profound spirit furnace, was the most likely. He just didn't know when his genius disciple would be able to understand this. It was no wonder that the profound spirit furnace would be one of the strongest alchemy furnaces in the immortal world in the future. This alone was enough to make it among the strongest alchemy furnaces. It was very strange that before entering the scriptures pavilion, Yang Chun wanted to find a way to improve the inner sensing pill by learning from the experience of the predecessors. But in the process of learning, he had already forgotten this original intention. The problem was that when Yang Chun did not deliberately ponder how to improve this aspect, several different ways naturally emerged in his mind, all of which could be used to improve the existing inner sensing pill in different directions. Success comes naturally? It seems that this sentence does make sense. At this time, Yang Chun realized the shallowness of his previous alchemy. He really didn't know what to be proud of when he relied on the merit chapter to refine some specious medicinal pills. Naturally, for the refining of the 8-grade medicinal pills, Yang Chun has now also had a more extensive and in-depth improvement. Only at this time did Yang Chun admit that he was a qualified 8th-grade alchemy master, not just a few dozens of kinds of 8th-grade medicinal pills, and thought that he had reached this realm. After a full half a month of rest, after relaxing with the girls again, when the mood and body were completely calmed down, Yang Chun appeared in the special alchemy room of the Dragon Palace, ready to start refining the improved inner sensing pill. There were already several improvement directions in his mind, which allowed Yang Chun to control and expand his senses. Separate hearing, pain, touch, any direction, this was the result of Yang Chun's learning during this time. Yang Chun did not determine which direction was the best, but planned to try all the improvements in several directions. Chapter 2334. The principle of the inner sensing pill has been directly analyzed by Yang Chun with fine pharmacological knowledge. what medicinal materials and what ingredients will cause the effect of expanding the feeling, what kind of feeling will be expanded, specifically how to remove the pain, how many side effects of the original inner sensing pill are not expected, etc. After Yang Chun reanalyzed the pill recipe, he understood it clearly. Of course, this is only a theoretical understanding. If you want to verify it, you still need to refine it to know the specific effect. Whether it is the inner sensing pill or the improved inner sensing pill, it has never been too difficult for Yang Chun. It's just an experiment, so Yang Chun doesn't have to go directly to the level of the 8th grade refining. In fact, in the past, Yang Chun's 1st grade refining was not necessarily worse than the 6th grade refining. Now it was only stronger. Hearing and pain were the main troubles that caused the user to faint and suffer. So Yang Chun had to first remove the efficacy of these 2 senses to test the effect. Unlike the previous alchemy, Yang Chun felt that when he wanted to do alchemy, he could do alchemy as long as he found a safe enough place. But now Yang Chun seems to pay a lot of attention not only to the most professional Dragon Palace alchemist, but also to adjust his body and mind, let himself reach the peak state before starting. This was a change in attitude towards alchemy. Alchemy was a more profound knowledge than cultivation. It must not be treated with that kind of sloppy attitude. After thinking about all the details in his mind, Yang Chun began to do it. If someone was watching by the side, as soon as the fire seed came out, they would immediately be able to see the difference between Yang Chun's alchemy and the previous one and the vast majority of alchemists. Ordinary alchemists are only proficient in one or several kinds of fire seeds, but there must be only one kind that can become the life source fire seed. Yang Chun is the same. There is only one kind of life source fire seed, but his yin-yang heaven-burning fire can simulate any fire seed in the world. Usually, when alchemists get the pill recipe, they use their own life source fire seed to refine the medicinal pill, unless it is like the broken limb regeneration pill invented by Yang Chun. There are strict requirements for the fire seed quenching medicinal materials. Most ordinary pill recipes did not specifically require a fire seed. Yang Chun directly simulated dozens of kinds of fire seeds, and each kind of medicinal material was first quenched and purified according to the fire seeds and treatment methods most suitable for the medicinal material's own pharmacological efficacy. Just this step alone made more than 99% of the alchemists flinch. This was only the most preliminary preparation work. When it came to refining, it was another scene that would make people slap the table and exclaim in admiration. Dozens of the most suitable fire seeds actually appeared in the alchemy furnace at the same time, and when each medicinal material was fused with the other medicinal materials, they played their role appropriately. Everything seemed so natural and harmonious, as if it was supposed to be like that. After the pill was formed and the pill was collected, Yang Chun sat up in a fluid manner. It was filled with a rhythmic sense of beauty. It was so relaxed and at ease, as though there was no difficulty at all. 10 plump pills appeared in Yang Chun's hands. They looked very ordinary and unremarkable. Yang Chun didn't care. Then he pinched one and threw it into his mouth. He sat on the ground and began to close his eyes to feel the effect. As Yang Chun expected, after removing the sense of hearing and pain, this medicinal pill, which was comparable to the 7 Revolutions inner sensing pill, still magnified other feelings to the extreme. In the absence of pain, he felt the kind of blood flow in the body like a river, felt the rhythm of the muscles in the body, felt the friction of the bones and joints. Everything was so clear. The success of an experiment showed that the method Yang Chun thought about was correct. However, it was not perfect to reach this point. What Yang Chun wanted was not only this ordinary perception, but also a full understanding of the various insignificant subtle wounds in the body. Doing this step was far from enough. The improved inner sensing pill still had flaws, and there were still areas for improvement. When he opened the furnace again, Yang Chun made another part of the improvement. This time, he removed the external sense of touch and vision, smell, and taste, leaving purely the internal sense of touch. The medicinal pill was still a success, but some differences were that this time it was not a pill, but a powder. The powdered medicine could no longer be called an inner sensing pill, but it should be called an inner sensing powder. If this scene was seen by other alchemists, they would feel incredible. The dignified 8th grade alchemist master did not refine a medicinal pill, but refined a pile of powder. It was simply losing the face of the alchemist master. But Yangchen did not think so. Whether it was a pill or a powder, the form was not important. The important thing was what kind of medicinal effect could be achieved. In fact, when Yang Chun became a 7th grade alchemist master, Yang Chun had already understood this truth. The only purpose of refining a high-grade medicinal pill was to increase the confidence of the people who took the medicine. At a higher level, the alchemist master itself gave those cultivators the greatest confidence. As for whether it was a medicinal pill, a powder, or a soup, what was the difference? Just like a master who had reached a certain realm, the purpose of the fight was to kill. So what was the difference between killing with a sword, killing with a knife, or killing with a hand? After taking the inner sensing powder, Yang Chun felt different. This time, there was no external interference at all. Only the pure feeling in the body was left. Compared to the improved inner sensing pills, it was a step further. Basically, Yang Chun could feel the subtle injuries in the body, but it was not clear enough. For Yang Chun, this was still some dissatisfaction, but there was still room for improvement. After carefully thinking about why the feeling was not clear enough, and after those interference factors, Yang Chun once again opened the furnace to refine. This time it was even more excessive. The refining was directly a liquid, not a solid. These almost transparent and colorless liquids were carefully collected by Yang Chun into the jade bottle, and then began to experiment. Surprisingly, Yang Chun did not even drink the medicine directly this time, but injected the soup directly into his own blood vessels. In the eyes of ordinary alchemists, this was an absolutely rebellious practice, and even they would hate it. This absolutely lowered the style of the alchemists. It was a complete regression. The noble alchemists were reduced to the lowly realm of doctors in the mortal world. This could be tolerated. What could not be tolerated? Previously, Yang Chun analyzed that the interference with his own feeling should be the impact of the stomach absorption after taking the medicine. After all, it had to pass through the digestive system, increasing the pollution of various body fluids, such as gastric juices and intestinal juices, and the efficacy was not pure enough. Directly injecting it into the blood vessels avoided these unnecessary pollution and fully sent the medicinal liquid to all parts of the body. The effect was absolutely direct and effective. The fact was as Yang Chen expected. This time, he got a satisfactory result. Chapter 23:35. At Yang Chen's level, apart from pursuing the medicinal properties and perfection of the medicinal herbs he refined, he didn't care much about anything else in alchemy. As for whether it was a pill, a powder, a potion, or a soup, it didn't matter at all. Maybe one day, Yang Chun would take out a plaster, which would be the best of the best, far from being comparable to some glittering high-grade medicinal pills. In the eyes of some old-fashioned alchemists, this method of injecting medicinal liquid directly into the blood vessels was definitely deviant. Of course, this was also the reason why these old-fashioned alchemists only had ordinary achievements throughout their lives. In fact, Yang Chun had already used a similar method on others. When Long Quang occupied the body of the dragon puppet and resurrected, the method Yang Chun used was to directly bury the 8-revolution merit Ganoderma jade pill in the flesh of the dragon puppet, instead of letting him take it. The reason was actually the same. The difference was that at that time, it was still more traditional, using a shaped medicinal pill, unlike now, which directly used a pure medicinal liquid and directly injected it into the blood vessels. Relatively speaking, the method used by Long Quang at that time was much less efficient in activating the medicinal effect, and there were also many drawbacks. After all, directly absorbing the medicinal effect in the flesh and blood was different from delivering it to the whole body through the blood. Not to mention the effect of evenly delivering the medicinal effect. Just being able to spread it throughout the body was completely incomparable. This was also the reason why Long Quang had to cultivate in seclusion for a period of time after waking up. However, at that time, he could only do so The dragon puppet's vitality had already been lost, and its blood had already accumulated into a coagulated blood clot, unable to play its intended role. At that time, that method was actually very suitable. At least, Yang Chun was now aware of the benefits of directly injecting the medicine through the blood vessels. The feeling came in pieces, starting from the blood vessels where the medicine was injected. The touch inside the body continued to spread and magnify along the blood vessels into the heart, and then spread to all parts of the body. The entire interior of the body was in Yang Chen's perception. This feeling was very novel. It was as if Yang Chen's divine sense had thoroughly penetrated into his body, or as if there were eyes everywhere in Yang Chen's body. In short, as long as the blood could reach, Yang Chen could see everything clearly. 5 viscera and 6 bowels, blood vessels, muscles, tendons, fascia, and even bones and marrow, Yang Chen could see them all clearly. This was a clearer feeling than any other time he had inspected his body. At this moment, Yang Chen had even forgotten his original intention of refining these medicinal liquids, and was completely focused on observing the internal situation of his body. The circulation of blood, the contraction and relaxation of muscles and fascia, and the squirming of internal organs all presented a brand new world to Yang Chen. In the past, when he used the 5th grade inner sensing pill, at most, he could only perceive the slightest micrometer level of the situation in the body. How could it be like now? It had reached the point where even the smallest capillaries in the blood vessels could be detected. In the past, Yang Chen thought that the feeling that the 5th grade inner sensing pill gave him was already subtle. It was estimated that the vast majority of cultivators also thought so, being able to perceive the slightest details in the body. How could it not be called subtle? But now it seemed that it was a joke. After waiting for Yang Chen to thoroughly understand the situation in his body, the effect of this time had almost passed. After a day's rest, Yang Chen once again injected himself with a colorless and transparent medicinal liquid he named the internal sensing liquid. When he focused on understanding the damage of his body this time, Yang Chen found that his body was almost densely covered with small cracks that were too small to describe. When he saw this, Yang Chen couldn't help but show a wry smile. He thought that his golden body secret art was strong enough and perfect enough, but he didn't expect that there would be so many subtle scars. Of course, some of these scars were caused by the heavenly tribulation for a long time, but this still had a lot to do with his golden body secret art that was not perfect enough. Another thing that surprised Yang Chen was that he did not find anything related to the golden bell when he inspected his body this time. Was the golden bell not in his own body? But he had clearly refined the golden bell into his body, hadn't he? After thinking about it, Yang Chen could only explain it with one reason. That was, the effectiveness of the internal sensing liquid used now was not enough to allow himself to explore a more subtle realm. Only this explanation was reasonable. After all, the internal sensing liquid used by Yang Chen now was only refined by Yang Chen once. In ordinary alchemy terms, the 1st grade internal sensing liquid. Even if Yang Chen's 1st grade internal sensing liquid could match the 7th grade refining of other alchemists, it was only at the level of the 7th grade. It was excusable that he couldn't explore a more subtle realm. There was still some refined internal inspection liquid left, and Yang Chen did not waste it. After exploring all the subtle scars on his body, the medicinal properties of the internal inspection liquid were still there, and he once again cultivated the golden body secret art. In this golden body secret art cultivation, Yang Chen also deliberately repaired it, and at the same time corrected some of the ways of the golden body secret art in a small range. Only Yang Chen could still take into account the correction of the cultivation method under this kind of internal observation. After all, the golden body secret art was also created by Yang Chen after integrating the 100 schools. The effect of repairing while watching was very amazing. It was completely different from the previous large-scale and all-round nourishment of the meridians that Yang Chen used to know. The efficiency was much higher when it was targeted. Of course, Yang Chen didn't cultivate day and night. He had now completely reached another realm, with a degree of relaxation and reasonable distribution. He could do many other happy things every day, and he didn't have to be immersed in cultivation. This was not an urgent matter like breaking through or refining the heavens tribulation. Yang Chun didn't need to stretch himself to that point at any time and place. In the same sentence, cultivation was a happy thing, not boring. The women found that Yang Chun seemed to be a different person after coming out of the scriptures pavilion. Every day, in addition to the fixed time of cultivation with everyone, at other times, Yang Chun took turns to accompany the women and do something they liked with them. Everyone had their own hobbies, and the same was true for Yang Chun's wives and concubines. What surprised them was that Yang Chun would accompany them to do what they liked every time. Whether it was music, chess, calligraphy, painting, or tea, wine, and food, Yang Chun would accompany them. Of course, the most important thing was that Yang Chun personally accompanied them to do these things and always let them spend every day in a relaxed and happy manner. Just after consuming the remaining 80% of Yang Chun's medicinal liquid, Yang Chun had repaired all the subtle wounds that could be observed now. During this period of cultivation, there was nothing unusual about it, but Yang Chun gave people a feeling of infinite vitality. Chapter 2336. Obviously, the internal inspection liquid was a success, but it was not very successful. Next, Yang Chun still burned incense and cleaned his hands. After making enough preparations, he once again entered the alchemy room of the Dragon Palace and prepared to refine the high-grade internal inspection liquid. Now Yang Chun has understood why the alchemy room in the Tushita Palace and the alchemy furnace were so powerful. Every time he refined a pill, he had to prepare for a long time. That was the attitude that a real alchemy master should have, not the half-bottle vinegar idea that he thought before. In the past, Yang Chun thought that these were nothing, using ordinary materials and ordinary alchemy furnaces to refine excellent medicinal pills to show his level. But now Yang Chun has completely changed. Sometimes, things are far from as simple as they seem on the surface. Good medicinal materials, good alchemy furnace, good fire seeds to refine good medicinal pills, ordinary medicinal materials, ordinary alchemy furnace, ordinary fire seeds to refine ordinary medicinal pills. This is a good alchemy master. What is returning to nature? What is seeing the true meaning in the ordinary? This is it. Those who want to rely on ordinary things to refine super-grade medicinal pills are whimsical. Even if it is a success for a while, it must be far beyond the average level in some aspect, and not a reflection of the real level. For example, the previous Yang Chun was able to refine excellent medicinal pills with ordinary materials. The vast majority of it was because Yang Chun's fire seeds were excellent, his fire control ability was outstanding, and the profound spirit furnace was excellent. Of course, this has already shown that Yang Chun's level is very high. But Yang Chun believes that with better medicinal materials, Yang Chun himself can refine better medicinal pills under the same conditions. A good alchemy master does not want to show off skills, but to be down to earth. Those half-baked geniuses flying in the air, the higher they fly now, the heavier they will fall in the future. Yang Chun also realized this after coming out of the scriptures pavilion and living a fulfilling life with his own women for a period of time. This allowed him to slowly fall to the ground from floating in the air, and he no longer had to worry about problems in the future, settling down his heart and doing alchemy in a down-to-earth manner, not showing off, not exaggerating, only focusing on a single effect. Soon, the 8th grade internal inspection liquid was produced in a few days. However, it was still just a colorless and transparent liquid. It was impossible to tell how many rounds of refinement it had gone through. At this time, Yang Chun could also understand why most alchemists would only choose to refine pills and not other forms. After all, whether it was powder or soup, it was impossible to tell how many rounds of refinement it had gone through like a pill. It wasn't that the things they refined weren't good, but the people who used them didn't know what was good for them. Elixirs, which could be clearly seen at a glance, gave the user the most confidence, and became the final choice for the vast majority of alchemists. However, it was still the same old saying. Sometimes a medicinal pill depended on a number of revolutions, but most of the time, it depended on the person who made it. He believed that even if the Tao ancestor took out a pile of medicinal dregs and told others that it was a superior grade medicine, the person who consumed it would be more confident than others who held a 9 revolutions golden pill. At any time, people were fundamental. The medicinal pill, which had been refined by the 8th grade, once again entered Yang Chen's body through Yang Chen's blood vessels. This time, Yang Chen detected a more subtle part. The 1st grade of the internal inspection fluid had allowed Yang Chen to see the most subtle capillary level situation. Then now the 8th grade of the internal inspection fluid allowed Yang Chen to see the cell level and even more subtle internal situation of the cells. This time, Yang Chen not only saw the most subtle structure that made up his body, but also saw the golden bell and the part of the magic weapon. Yang Chen also found that most of his body was still water. This was a novel discovery. If it weren't for his own sensitivity that had been improved by hundreds of millions of times, Yang Chen wouldn't be able to detect it at all. He couldn't believe that his strong body was actually composed of the softest water. Each of those smallest units had a small part of the golden bell. It was indeed the most thorough integration with his own body, so that his whole body was full of golden bells. This didn't cause physical discomfort. He didn't know how the master who first discovered that he could integrate the magic weapon into his body found it. The magic weapon was really the magic weapon. It was actually directly in his brain and spinal cord. No wonder the damage to the magic weapon would affect the sea of consciousness. It turned out to be like this. At this point, the slight cracks on the golden bell were basically mastered by Yang Chen. Logically, Yang Chen spent dozens of days living a happy life with the women, while slowly repairing these scars on the golden bell with the golden body secret art. And by the way, improved the golden body secret art again. In the past, when Yang Chen was improving the golden body secret art, he always had a plan for a long time from the general direction, and then he racked his brains for a long time to find a way to improve it. In fact, the effect of the improvement was only very subtle. But this time it didn't take too long, and it didn't even consume too much energy of Yang Chen. But the effect of the improvement was qualitatively improved. It must be said that being able to see the target of the improvement and the impact was the biggest contributor. In this regard, the 8th grade internal inspection liquid played an indispensable role. In just a few months, the golden body secret art had undergone 2 improvements. One was for the cultivation of Yang Chen's real physical body, and the other was for the golden bell, that is, the universe treasure-raising secret art. After Yang Chen had completely improved and repaired it, even the women who had been with Yang Chen and watched his changes in cultivation every day were a little surprised. According to reason, the little changes every day were the most difficult to see because they were used to it. But even so, they also found that Yang Chen's body was becoming more and more delicate, and even to the point of mutation, and they couldn't help but be surprised. Without asking, this must be because her husband had solved the remaining problems of the heaven's tribulation. His body had recovered, and there was no need to worry anymore. This was something worthy of everyone's happiness. Yang Chen's harvest was not only in the golden body secret art and the repair of the injury. Through this internal inspection, he found that water had a very important role for the physical body. All the most subtle structures in his body were soaked in water, tissue fluid, which made Yang Chen have a higher level of understanding of the use of the water flying sword. For the time being, the water flying sword was a complete flying sword made of dragon bones, but it had the water attribute, not the form of water. Therefore, Yang Chen did not change much in the use of the water flying sword. What really made Yang Chen feel that it was necessary to change was the water flying sword. The body of the water flying sword was the venom of the root of the ultimate demonized demon vine, which was a black liquid. After Yang Chen discovered the importance of water for the physical body, the water flying sword seemed to be able to further increase the damage. Chapter 23:37. Before this, the damage of the 9th water flying sword was mainly reflected in its strong toxicity and severe corrosiveness. Because of these 2 characteristics, the 9th water flying sword was almost invincible. Even the yin-yang heaven-burning fire couldn't do anything to Old Bug, and it was controlled by the 9th water flying sword. Most of the basic structure of the physical body was immersed in water. If the ninth water-flying sword could attack this water, I am afraid that the effect would be more direct and overbearing. Whether it was injecting toxicity and corrosiveness into this water or directly extracting this water, I am afraid that the damage to the enemy's physical body would be increased to a terrifying level. Yang Chun has a acquired water attribute spiritual root full value. He also has unique conditions in the cultivation of water attribute cultivation methods. After discovering that water is so important, he naturally wants to try to make a breakthrough in the water attribute flying sword. Of course, this kind of breakthrough can't be achieved overnight. Yang Chun also needs to experiment slowly. However, before starting, Yang Chun still intends to let the women feel the power of the internal inspection fluid first. After Yang Chun's personal trial for so many days, Yang Chun also understood that the internal inspection fluid was not harmful to himself, so it was natural to give it to the women. Seeing that their husband did not take out a medicinal pill, but a liquid, the women were puzzled for a while. Did he want everyone to drink this liquid? As a result, Yang Chun actually asked everyone to turn their own life source magic weapon into a catheter and plunge it into their own blood vessels, which was even more incredible. However, the idea of their husband, the women still did not have the slightest doubt and did it. At the beginning, Yang Chun only took out the internal inspection fluid that he had refined himself. He also hoped that the women could perceive the interior step by step like himself. It would be best if they could comprehend something. Even if they couldn't, Yang Chun could give them a little hint. The women were immersed in the powerful effect of the internal inspection fluid and began to examine their own internal organs. Yang Chun also did water attribute experiments while guarding the women. From the mountain river geographical map, Yang Chun casually grabbed a small beast without spirituality. After restraining it, he began to circulate his power on the small beast, trying to control the water in the small beast's body to separate out. It was easy to understand the principle, but it wasn't easy to do it, especially when he wanted to rely on spiritual power to do this out of thin air. It was even more difficult. No matter how hard Yang Chun tried, he couldn't do it without touching the little beast. Of course, if any part of Yang Chun's body could touch the little beast's body, it would be relatively easy to achieve this. After all, the other party was just a little beast without any intelligence. In front of Yang Chun, who was a real tribulation transcending profound immortal, it could not resist at all. Yang Chun couldn't help but be shocked when he saw the little beast turn into a dried corpse in an instant. He knew that the formation of a dried corpse was due to the loss of water in the body, but he also knew that all dried corpses had been formed over a long period of time. Turning into a dried corpse in an instant, it seemed that Yang Chun had only seen it in front of his own eyes. That was after the blood of the whole body was absorbed by the blood demon vine flying sword. However, the current dried corpse was slightly different from the dried corpse whose blood had been absorbed. In order to make a careful distinction, Yang Chun deliberately found another small beast and then gently stabbed it with the blood demon vine flying sword. The two dried corpses were placed side by side, and the difference was immediately seen. The dried corpse that had lost all the blood in its body actually still had a lot of water left, but the whole body was pale and bloodless. Some muscles still retained a certain elasticity and looked slightly fresh. But the one that had been drained of all the water was another look. Although it also looked pale, it was not completely bloodless. But this kind of dryness was a kind of complete dryness, a kind of dryness of a complete rupture. Not to mention the elasticity of the muscles. It was almost dry and cracked. It was estimated that it would scatter into a pile of powder with a gentle touch. Excessive blood loss, for a powerful cultivator, may still be able to be saved. In the past, Sun Qingshue's master, Elder Hua Wanting, was tortured by the blood demon vine for 100 years, and all the blood in his body was absorbed clean. In this way, Elder Hua still relied on his strong cultivation base to survive. However, Yang Chun believed that if Elder Hua had encountered this kind of loss of water at that time, I am afraid that the result would be different and there would be no luck. This also fully explained how terrifying Yang Chun's discovery was when it was used in the attack. If he couldn't do it without direct contact, Yang Chun could only think of another way. At this time, the ninth water-flying sword came in handy. Yang Chun didn't touch the opponent, but the flying sword could directly touch the opponent. The flying sword touched the body of the small beast, and the result was no different from Yang Chun touching it with his own hands. In an instant, the water in the body of the small beast was drained, and it became a complete corpse. However, if the flying sword had to touch it directly, relying on the toxicity and corrosiveness of the ninth water-flying sword, coupled with the spiritual power attack of Yang Chun, was enough to make the enemy suffer. There was no need to add such an attack. What Yang Chun needed to achieve was that even if the flying sword didn't touch the opponent, it could make the opponent lose some or all of its water. This time, Yang Chun tried for a long time and didn't succeed. Until the women had already felt the effect of the medicine, Yang Chun could only give up trying. After this internal inspection, the women also found some problems in their bodies. At this point, there was no need for Yang Chun to remind them. All the women were cultivation geniuses, and they all knew what to do. But when the women were about to try to repair it, they were stopped by Yang Chun. Yang Chun also bluntly said that it would be better to cultivate after using the internal inspection liquid next time, and the effect would be better. Thinking of the kind of leisure that their husband had shown these days, the women also understood and followed Yang Chun to be leisurely. After leaving enough internal inspection liquid for the women, Yang Chun entered the pill room again. This time, he wanted to refine a medicinal pill that could improve the external senses. With the foundation of refining the internal inspection liquid before, it was easy to improve the external senses. It was mainly the touch and sensitivity of the skin, as well as the sense of smell. He wanted to see if he could intuitively use his own senses to achieve some water-related means that even Yang Chun couldn't explain. As a cultivator, he was extremely sensitive to the spiritual power of the outside world, which was the result of cultivation. But if a pure physical body wanted to feel something from the outside world, it needed a high concentration of something outside. For example, when it was foggy or rainy, even if people were not in the water, they could find that the surrounding water vapor was enough. This was a kind of perception. It just needed a specific environment. In the same way, in some volcanic environments, it was possible to perceive the surrounding fire without relying on spiritual power. This was also the role of external senses. Chapter 23:38. It was also a medicinal liquid, but Yang Chun named it external inspection liquid. It was a very low-level name, but Yang Chun was too lazy to use his brain. Anyway, he knew what the function was. As for whether someone would give it an earth-shattering name in the future, it was not something that Yang Chun could control. After sending the medicinal liquid into the blood vessels, Yang Chun's senses suddenly became very clear. Even with his eyes closed, Yang Chun's skin seemed to be able to clearly feel the difference in the surrounding air. This was a completely different feeling from using his spiritual awareness to explore. It was completely his own natural senses, but it was magnified by hundreds of millions of times. Yang Chun deliberately paid attention to the surrounding water vapor. Unsurprisingly, Yang Chun noticed the invisible water vapor around him. These water vapor permeated the air everywhere. No matter how strong the cultivator was, unless he had been holding his breath to keep all the air out of the body, otherwise he would not be able to escape the collision of water vapor. It turned out that as long as the liquid water was turned into water vapor, he could achieve a simple water contact. After realizing this, Yang Chun's confidence in his ninth water-flying sword increased a bit. Directly controlling the water vapor in the air, this was not realistic. If there was no interference, it might be possible, but if it was done in a battle, it was impossible. The interference of the opponent's spiritual power was destined to be able to offset his own. There was only one way. That was through his own life source flying sword. The ninth water flying sword was one of Yang Chun's life source flying sword. It had been integrated into Yang Chun's flesh and blood, and was almost no different from the original body. Because there was not much black liquid, when Yang Chun used the ninth water flying sword in the past, he was afraid that the flying sword was not compressed enough for fear that it would evaporate. But now, Yang Chun had to do the opposite and try to attack the enemy with water vapor. Under the control of Yang Chun, a part of the Flying Sword 9 began to slowly diffuse into water vapor, turning into a mist. Soon, the evaporated part turned into a cloud of black mist, which forced Yang Chun to smile bitterly. The current form of the black mist was too similar to the 9 Nether Flying Swords' black mist. If one didn't carefully distinguish their attributes, they would probably think that they were the same thing. However, there was still a difference in attributes. The 9 Nether Flying Dust was dry, while the 9th Water Black Mist was wet. In the black fog state, Yang Chun was still able to control it very well. After all, this was Yang Chen's natal flying sword. However, compared to the liquid state, the black fog was much weaker. After all, his condition had changed. This was normal. Manipulating the black mist, Yang Chun easily sucked a small beast into a mummy. This fully proved that the method was effective. However, there was a small problem. With just a glance, one could tell that this black mist was a very ominous thing. No cultivator would allow the black mist to envelop their body and come into contact with it, unless they were a fool. The black mist was still very toxic and corrosive. However, it had turned into water vapor. Compared to the liquid state, its might was reduced by a lot. Moreover, it would also cause the enemy to be on guard. The gains did not make up for the losses. Next, Yang Chun only tried to separate the water from the Flying Sword 9, leaving the toxicity and corrosive properties in the Flying Sword. The rising water vapor only contained the purest water vapor. Like this, who would be able to find out that there was a problem? However, even the purest water vapor had gone through Yang Chen's tempering and refinement. It was a part of the Flying Sword 9. As such, he could still control it with ease. The invisible and colorless water vapor came into contact with the small beast and successfully turned it into a dried-up corpse. At this point, Yang Chen's experiment was successfully completed. There was a benefit that Yang Chun did not think of. The black mist was even more toxic and corrosive, making the power of the flying sword even greater. However, at the same time, the separated water vapor had also turned into a kind of invisible and terrifying weapon. During the battle, it would silently permeate the surroundings of the enemy and extract the water vapor from the enemy's body at any time. This kind of attack was simply impossible to guard against. Who would have thought that the seemingly inconspicuous water vapor would be a fatal killer? However, the power of the water vapor alone was still not enough. After all, it was the body of the enemy cultivator. Under direct control, it was far more direct and effective than Yang Chun controlling the water vapor to absorb it from a distance. If there was a big gap between the cultivation level of both sides, then perhaps it would be effective. However, if the cultivation level was similar, then this kind of invisible attack could only dehydrate the enemy a little. For an enemy of Yang Chen's level, the effect was almost negligible. However, there was no absolute in this world. No matter how small the injuries accumulated, it would still be very dangerous. If the two sides fell into a stalemate, this slight weakening of the other party's injury would probably be a life-saving talisman for the enemy. As for being directly attacked by the 9th Water Flying Sword, it was estimated that the consequences were more serious than being attacked by the Blood Phantom Vine Flying Sword. At this point, Yang Chen's research in this regard had come to an end. He had gained many benefits and added a brand new elixir. Yang Chun was very satisfied. The women had successfully repaired the old injuries inside their bodies with the help of the first-grade internal inspection liquid. Before they could take a break, Yang Chun gave them the 8th-grade internal inspection liquid. Everyone thought that they had enough understanding of their bodies before, but after using these internal inspection liquid this time, they found that their understanding was far from enough. Their husband could always surprise them again and again, and this time he did not let them down. After trying the power of the 8th-grade internal inspection liquid, the women finally knew where the feeling of health and vitality that their husband had shown before came from. What surprised them even more was that they thought that their own cultivation was very good, and there should be no problems in their bodies. But under the first-grade internal inspection liquid, they still found many subtle old injuries. They thought that this was the end. As a result, under the 8th grade internal inspection liquid, they found another batch of old injuries hidden deeper, which made people feel cold. It was inevitable that there would be such subtle injuries in cultivation, but before that, everyone had no particularly good solution. They could only improve their cultivation base or use various elixirs to repair, but sometimes these two methods could only solve the superficial problems. Their husband's internal inspection liquid was the best elixir that really let everyone understand the true situation of their bodies. Even if the method of medication was so unconventional, as long as it could work, what difference did it make? The women had just repaired the seam wounds. Before Yang Chun could promote the internal inspection liquid, Brother Li Chung rushed back from the spiritual world. Seeing the situation of Yang Chun and the women, even Brother Li Chung couldn't help but be surprised. He didn't even care about what happened in the spiritual world and directly asked Yang Chun what he did to cause such a change in everyone. He hadn't gotten an answer yet, but at this moment, even Brother Li Chung had to admit that the younger brother he recognized seemed to have walked ahead of him in some aspects. Chapter 23:39. However, at this time, the only answer Brother Li Chung could get was that Yang Chun had recently refined 1 or 2 new medicines. After all, Brother Li Cheng's entry into the demon realm was the most important thing. Everything else could be put aside. But from this answer, Brother Li Chung seemed to have thought of something. His eyes were full of splendor. The answer he heard just now was to refine a new medicine, not a new elixir. There was still a big difference between the two. For an alchemy expert like Brother Li Chung, he could hear the clues from 1 or 2 words. Although it was hard to resist, Brother Li Chung also knew that business was more important, so he first told them the results of his exploration in the demon realm. The Zhao family really had extraordinary ambitions for the demon realm. At least, Big Brother Li Chun had discovered that the Dragon Clan expert of the Zhao family had already refined a part of the demon realm from another direction, and it was a very large part, almost close to half. As for the Zhao family itself, as everyone expected, the Golden Immortal experts who were injured after the battle at Xiantian sect were recuperating. Looking at their recovery progress, they would probably recover in a few years. What puzzled Yang Chun was that the Zhao family was not stupid. Otherwise, they would not have been able to hide in the spiritual realm for so long. However, for so many years, they had stayed in the demon realm without coming out. They did not even make the most basic harassment. This was very strange. Even the generals of the mortal world who had never cultivated and had only read military books for a few days knew that they could not give their opponents time to develop peacefully. They had to harass them from time to time and make them anxious all the time so that they could buy time for themselves to recover. This was the right way. The dignified Zhao family could not even know this, right? Just by looking at the Joint Command, they resolutely sent those golden immortal experts from the lower realm into the demon realm to wait for an opportunity to harass them, even if they did not know where the Zhao family's nest in the demon realm was. Not to mention that the Zhao family had the geographical advantage in the demon realm. The major sect could not move away. Everyone in the Zhao family knew this, so it was a bit strange that they did not send people to attack them. When he asked Brother Li Chung this question, Yang Chun did not think that Brother Li Chung would know the reason. But Yang Chun was still surprised to hear Li Cheng's answer. Speaking of this, I have to talk about your fellow villager with the same surname. Big Brother Li Chung said with a smile. Are all of you with the surname Yang so skillful? A fellow villager with the same surname in the same village. That could only be Yang Lan. It could not be anyone else. This was also because of Yang Lan, which made Yang Chun unexpected. I thought it was because the Joint Command surveillance of the entrance to the demon realm was more strict, so they didn't have a chance. Yang Chun smiled bitterly. He really thought so. After all, those golden immortal experts were still recuperating. It would be very difficult for a Xian immortal expert to pass through the entrance of the demon realm under the eyes of at least 2 golden immortals. At best, the harassment that the Zhao family could do was to use the deepest dark children hidden in the spiritual world, or Yanglan's puppets. There was no harassment at all. What does this have to do with Yanglan? Don't underestimate that Yanglan. Big Brother Li Chung smiled. but there was a solemn look in his eyes. It could make Big Brother Li Cheng have such an attitude. It could be seen that what Yang Lan did was really surprising. When it comes to means, it's not worth mentioning. It's still the old joke in the Xintian sect. Big Brother Li Cheng went on to say, but his technique is more than one level higher. So far, the entire Zhao family has been kept in the dark by him. When Big Brother Li Cheng said this, Yang Chun basically understood what method Yang Lan used. It was nothing more than using the great unfettered Demon Heart Sutra to control the puppet. It was really a very old-fashioned method. However, Yang Chun absolutely believed that Yang Lan's technique was better than what Big Brother Li Cheng said. This was something that Yang Chun had personally experienced. Compared with the clumsy technique of Yang Lan in the mortal world, the current Yang Lan's technique of using the great unfettered Demon Heart Sutra was really close to reaching the point of perfection. Of course, there was still a little bit left. If Yang Lan could solve the imprint left by some unique techniques of the great unfettered Demon Heart Sutra without being discovered, then he would really reach the point of transcendence. It was normal to think about it. Who was Yang Lan? How could he only attack the masters of other sect in the spiritual world when he was living under the Zhao family's roof and not attack the Zhao family who had more masters? The masters of the Zhao family, who could be contacted almost every day, were temptations for Yang Lan all the time. They were all targets that he couldn't stop himself from doing. Yang Lan, was not really loyal to the Zhao family. It would be strange if he couldn't hold back from doing it. Listening to Big Brother Li Cheng's words, it seemed that Yang Lan had already controlled some of the big figures of the Zhao family. Otherwise, Big Brother Li Cheng would not say that. In addition, Yang Lan could control tens of thousands of people in the sect in the spiritual world. He was afraid that there were many masters secretly controlled in the Zhao family. The Zhao family saved Yang Lan and put him in an important position. It was simply leading a wolf into the house to seek his own death. Yang Lan is now very useful in the Zhao family senior management. Most of the senior management listened to him. Big Brother Li Cheng told everything he saw. It seems that it is also Yang Lan's intention. The Zhao family is now quiet and waiting for the next heavy punch. In this way, both sides were waiting for a suitable opportunity to attack the decisive battle, which was what Yang Chun wanted to see. If all the problems could be solved in one battle, that would be the best. Yang Chun didn't care much about Yang Lan. After all, as long as the puppet controlled by his great Freedom Demon Heart Sutra was solved, Yang Lan wouldn't be able to set off much of a storm. What worried Yang Chun was the two Dragon Clan masters of the Zhao family and the demon realm they refined. Gong Sunling and the third primordial spirit were still refining the demon realm. Before colliding with the two Dragon Clan masters, they could refine as many lotus flowers as they could. Every time they refined it, the power of the mountain river geographical map would be greater. The situation inside is almost like this. It is estimated that these sects in the spiritual world are also ready for a decisive battle. There is nothing to say. Big Brother Li Cheng said the situation in the demon realm. Of course, he did not forget to tell Yang Chun that he had also used some small means to increase the difficulty of refining the demon realm. With Big Brother Li Cheng's little means, it was enough to delay the progress of the two Dragon Clan masters refining the demon realm for at least 20 years. This had already won enough time for the sect in the spiritual world to make more adequate preparations. It seemed that the victory and defeat were estimated to be 20 years later. After Big Brother Li Cheng said this, he immediately couldn't wait to ask about Yang Chen's new medicine. He wanted to know what kind of amazing things his little brother had come up with this time. Chapter 2340. Alchemy was not done behind closed doors. No matter how good the alchemist was, they also needed to communicate with their peers and learn from the experience and lessons of their predecessors. Before Yang Chun studied in the Scriptures Pavilion, he was learning from the experience and lessons of his predecessors. Discussing with Big Brother Li Cheng was part of the peer exchange. If he exchanged a new prescription with the alchemists of other sect, Yang Chun might still have concerns, but with Big Brother Li Cheng, Yang Chun had no worries. He directly took out all the prescriptions he had studied these days and asked Big Brother Li Cheng to correct them. Li Cheng took over the series of jade slips that Yang Chun recorded the process of Yang Chun from the inner sensing pill to the internal inspection liquid and then to the external inspection liquid. He looked at it very seriously. This was the record that Yang Chun left for future generations. Even the thoughts that were considered at the time were recorded very clearly. Li Cheng saw that it was not too difficult. However, when Big Brother Li Cheng saw that Yang Chun no longer took the internal inspection liquid directly, but injected the internal inspection liquid directly into the blood vessels, there was a little change in his expression. It was impossible to understand why Yang Chun did this at the time by looking at the jade slips. Although Yang Chun had explained it very clearly, this was done because he was afraid that the digestive fluid secreted by the digestive system, such as the gastrointestinal tract, would contaminate the medicinal materials and affect the medicinal properties, and the blood vessels could enter the body more directly. Without a digestion and absorption process, of course, the effect would be faster. The premise of all this was that he had a good understanding of the internal situation of his own body. There is no doubt that the elementary inner sensing pill was the basis of all this. Big Brother Li Cheng didn't say anything and directly asked Yang Chun for the roughest 5th grade inner sensing pill at the time. In the formation that Yang Chun had already arranged, he swallowed it. To thoroughly understand Yang Chun's thoughts, it was necessary to take the various medicines used by Yang Chun one by one in the order of Yang Chun. The 5th grade inner sensing pill has been taken by all the women. Basically, they couldn't bear this level of pain. After using it once, they wouldn't use it again. However, seeing Li Cheng consume it, they also wanted to know if Li Cheng could endure that kind of inhuman pain like their husband. Big Brother Li Cheng didn't disappoint anyone. The pain that even the profound heaven sex elders couldn't endure didn't seem to exist for Big Brother Li Cheng. From the beginning to the end, Big Brother Li Cheng was so calm. His sitting body did not move at all, and the expression on his face did not change from beginning to end. As expected of a fellow who was as perverted as her husband. They even had the same reaction after eating this pill. It would be strange if the two of them couldn't become good friends. After the medicinal effect wore off, Li Cheng slowly stood up, looking pensive. This kind of inner sensing pill of the monster race still made him feel a little surprised. Even though it was unbearably vulgar, it played a significant role. Of course, the side effects were indeed fatal. Only people like him and Yang Chun could endure it. It was just a trivial 5th grade inner sensing pill, and it was also the crudest pill recipe of the monster race. But the effect achieved could be compared with the effect of spiritual awareness entering the great principal golden immortal realm after experiencing the golden immortal tribulation. Sure enough, no cultivator could be underestimated. Maybe one day, there would be a race whose overall alchemy level was extremely low that could think of an excellent idea. However, the 5th grade inner sensing pill was just that, and it couldn't go further to let the cultivator really understand the inside of their body. Next, Big Brother Li Cheng began to take the internal sensing powder that Yang Chun had refined at the beginning. The internal sensing powder gave Li Cheng a different feeling, and he understood more about the inside of his body. But for Li Cheng, this was not enough, and there was always some unfinished meaning that he couldn't use. Li Cheng also understood why Yang Chun had to carry out the starting point of research at this point. The refining process was step by step, so that Big Brother Li Cheng could understand more intuitively through taking the medicine. When Li Cheng sent the 1st grade internal sensing liquid into his blood vessels, the feeling that Yang Chun had experienced was perfectly replicated in Big Brother Li Cheng. To be able to understand how the internal workings of the body were so clear, this was no less than the significance of discovering the highest grade cultivation method for cultivation. In the art of war, it was said that if you know yourself and your enemy, you will win 100 battles, and it was also applicable in cultivation. Big Brother Li Cheng had his own means, and he could do things that could only be done with the internal sensing liquid, but this step that could be achieved without relying on cultivation was 1,000 times simpler than his method. For cultivators, all problems could be solved by cultivation. Of course, some problems could not be sustained until your cultivation base increased to that realm. For example, serious injuries, such as the situation after the use of the internal sensing liquid. The first-grade internal sensing liquid had such an effect, which had fully explained the correctness of the method used by Yang Chun to inject the medicine into the blood vessels. However, Li Cheng did not make a conclusion at this time, but used the 8th-grade internal sensing liquid again. This time, the feeling was clearer and more subtle. Even Big Brother Li Cheng found that there were some insignificant old wounds in his body that had been accumulated over the years. With the efficacy of the 8th-grade internal sensing liquid, Big Brother Li Cheng also swept away the diseases in his body. Perhaps there would still be surprises in the more subtle levels of the body, but the 8th-grade internal sensing liquid could only do this at most, and it could not go further. This was the limitation of Yang Chen's alchemy level, but it had nothing to do with the internal sensing liquid. The understanding of the internal sensing liquid came to an end at this point, but Yang Chun did not let Big Brother Li Cheng stop, but gave him some external sensing liquid to use. This time, the perception was magnified and concentrated on the outside, giving Big Brother Li Cheng the feeling that his spiritual awareness cultivation base had directly increased by tens of thousands of times. Finally, he felt all the new drugs that Yang Chun had studied during this time. Big Brother Li Cheng sat on the futon and did not say a word for a long time. Maybe you really created a precedent in alchemy. Finally, Big Brother Li Cheng spoke, and he praised, "In the future, alchemy will have a new realm, and you are the ancestor." "Big Brother, hasn't the Tao ancestor done this before?" Yang Chun asked with some uncertainty. Although Yang Chun had the elderly Lord alchemy scripture, there was no attempt in this aspect, but Yang Chun did not think that it was everything about the Tao ancestor's alchemy. In this regard, he still had to ask Big Brother Li Cheng to get a more comprehensive answer. The Tao ancestor is just one person. It is impossible to think of everything in the world, right? Big Brother Li Cheng did not take charge just because he was talking about the Tao ancestor, but said realistically, even the demon realm and the monster realm have great people who can do this kind of thing. Is it strange that the Tao ancestor can't think of this alchemy method? Chapter 2341. Chunyang Palace's Master Yang had a new medicine. This news flew to all corners of the spiritual world as if it had wings. Just as the cultivators of the spiritual world were eager to plunder their wealth and prepare to go to Wanbao Tower to grab Master Yang's new elixir, more news came. The elixir refined by Master Yang this time was very different from the past. If it weren't for the good experience of cooperation with Master Yang in the past, I'm afraid I wouldn't be qualified to buy this new medicine. Even the cultivators who had good cooperation must promise that if they wanted the new medicine, they must fully comply with Master Yang's requirements, and must use the new medicine within 3 days after getting it. This time, the cooperation formation did not include the sect. If the major sect wanted it, they could directly send the cultivators who wanted to use the medicine. Yang Chun would not provide the sect with it in batches. The reason was very simple. This new medicine, named by Master Yang as the internal inspection fluid, could only be stored for a long time in Master Yang's medicine nourishing gourd. As long as it was left, the efficacy would continue to decline, and after 3 days, it would basically disappear. However, so far, everyone only knew that there was a new medicine, but they didn't know the name of the medicine. Therefore, the best time to take it was to take it immediately after buying it. Taking it within 3 days was the deadline. No one would be willing to waste God's gift so recklessly. However, this level of internal inspection fluid was given to some cultivators with low cultivation. Even if they could find the abnormality in the body, it was estimated that they would be unable to do anything about those subtle injuries. Therefore, there was a limit to the use of internal inspection fluid. That was, the cultivation must at least reach the Heaven Immortal level. Only the cultivators of the Heaven Immortal level had the ability to repair their internal injuries, so they wouldn't waste the rare super perception after taking the medicine. Of course, good things were first used by the disciples in the sect. The disciples of the Heaven Immortal level and Xian Immortal level in Chunyang Palace could, according to the rules of the sect, exchange their contribution to the sect for a chance to use the medicine. It was said to be an opportunity, but there were two grades of internal inspection fluid. First, the first grade internal inspection fluid would let everyone adapt to it first. At the same time, after recuperating the subtle level of injuries, they would use the 8th grade internal inspection fluid to carry out a more delicate repair. As for the sect's internal supply, Yang Chun did not need too many sect contribution points. Basically, as long as the disciples reached the heaven immortal level, the sect contribution points would be more than enough. Even the disciples of the Shantian sect, who joined the Chunyang Palace later, at the level of Fairy Immortal and Xian Immortal, had enough contribution points for the sect. This was also one of the prerequisites for the merger, which was to preserve the mysterious heaven sect, disciples' contributions to the sect. Otherwise, not many would agree to join new sect and start from scratch. The ones who were most interested in Yang Chen's new medicine were the Xian Immortal Elders in the Sutra Pavilion. They were the first to know what Yang Chun was going to do. At this time, Yang Chun launched a new drug. There was no need to ask. It must be the effect of the previous inner sensing pill. The first to use the medicine was indeed these Xian Immortal Elders. However, when Yang Chun said his requirements for the medicine, several elders were all staring at each other, a little incredulous. Who didn't need to eat the medicinal pill, but sent it directly to their own blood vessels? If it weren't for Yang Chen's good reputation in alchemy, it was estimated that these elders would have taught this guy a lesson as soon as they heard such an outrageous request. There must be a standard for being unconventional. Such a rebellious idea. How could it be casually touched by a little rascal? That was Yang Chen's kind of big shot, saying this kind of request, everyone would not turn hostile on the spot. Of course, the improvement of Yang Chen's family couldn't be hidden from the elders who had only seen Yang Chen a few months ago. This real effect was what moved them the most. The Xian Immortal Elder who had tried the power of the 5 revolutions inner sensing pill was still the first. Because he had tried the inner sensing pill and knew the benefits, he was able to stand up to the crowd and grab the first place. Everyone also wanted to know how the effect was. There was no better effect than their own people personally demonstrating in front of them. So they didn't compete and quietly waited to see the effect of the medicine. For using their own life source magic weapon to send the medicinal liquid into the blood vessels. This made all the elders who heard the request nod slightly. Trusting Yang Chen's method of entering the medicine was one thing. But if you let other magic weapons stab into your own blood vessels, as long as you were a cultivator, you would resist. The effect of the internal inspection liquid was outstanding, and the elder cultivated for a whole day on the spot. When he stood up the next day, there was no need for Yang Chun to say anything more. Everyone just looked at the vitality of the elder and knew that the medicinal liquid was not false. After the 8 revolutions internal inspection liquid entered the body, even if he had already experienced a surprise, the elder's face still showed an unbelievable expression. After another day and night, the elder was not only in high spirits, but even couldn't wait to announce on the spot that he would retreat for a few days. The experience of observation was enough for him to break through the next small realm after this retreat. The successful demonstration of his companion was really more useful than any words. Next, several Xian Immortal Elders of the Scriptures Pavilion were shown, then the Elders of the Secret Pavilion, then the Elders of the Heavenly Dipper, and a group of Xian Immortal Masters all used the internal inspection liquid. Even the Xian Immortal Monster Beasts around Yang Chen's rich people were no exception. Even the Earth Dragon was poured by Yang Chen at least dozens of people. As for how much benefit the Earth Dragon could get, it depended on him. Of course, the Golden Immortal Master of the Black Tortoise Academy did not fall behind. He was the only VIP in the Chunyang Palace who used the internal inspection liquid for free. However, the contribution of the sect that the Golden Immortal Elder should pay was borne by Yang Chun and the head of the palace respectively, and there was no violation of the rules. After the Xian Immortal Master, it was the Fairy Immortal Master. With that, the number of heavenly immortals had exceeded 2,000. Of course, it was impossible to use them individually. Instead, hundreds of them were gathered together and given their respective medicines. In just a few days, all of the heavenly immortals had their turn. When the news was released, it was already after the inside of the Chunyang Palace had finished enjoying the medicine. No one had any objection to this. Yang Chun was the young palace master of the Chunyang Palace. Of course, the new medicine was first used by the disciples of the Chunyang Palace, which was a matter of course. The fairy immortal masters of the Chunyang Palace were almost all in retreat, and this had almost become a well-known news. But what was more interesting was that the reason for these fairy immortal and Xian immortal masters to retreat was directly because of the influence of Yang Chen's new medicine. After learning the news, there were many masters who were interested in the sect, and soon a group of masters who were full of confidence in Master Yang Chen came together. The price set by Elder Wu Xiong was absolutely sky-high. However, the cultivators who came did not even bother bargaining. Without saying anything, they brought out spirit stones or items of equivalent value and began using the new medicine. One by one, the cultivators there began using the new medicine. Chapter 2342. No cultivator doubted, or rather, no cultivator at the level of Fairy Immortal or Xian Immortal would doubt that there was a problem with Master Yang's new medicine. Firstly, Yang Chen's good reputation in the past had played a role. No alchemist would ruin his own reputation in such a major event that was related to his own alchemy future. Another reason was the state of those Fairy Immortals and Xian Immortals in Chunyang Palace. Not every expert needed a long time to go into seclusion. Many of the senior disciples of Chunyang Palace started their seclusion after getting the opportunity to break through to the next small realm in a short period of time. After the breakthrough was completed, they would come out immediately. The biggest role of the internal inspection fluid was not to let people break through to the next realm, but to solve the old injuries accumulated over the years in the body, providing greater potential for future cultivation. How could those who had reached the level of Fairy Immortal or Xian Immortal not understand this? Therefore, those who happened to be on the verge of breaking through took this good opportunity to break through, and those who didn't would go into seclusion to comprehend it, not wasting much time. The cultivators who came to Chunyang Palace naturally saw the complexion of these disciples of Fairy Immortals and Xian Immortals in Chunyang Palace. To their surprise, every disciple of Fairy Immortals and Xian Immortals in Chunyang Palace had an excellent complexion, giving people a refreshing feeling that they looked exquisite from top to bottom. If it was only one or two, it didn't mean anything, but if all of them were like this, there must be a reason. During this time, the most famous new medicine launched by Yang Chun was the new medicine. When both sides thought about it, how could they not know the reason? Even if they couldn't think of it, those disciples of Chunyang Palace would always have a few familiar friends who would know the reason. It was still the same saying, seeing the real effect was the most tempting, especially after a few people who had a good relationship with them expressed their feelings. It was even more amazing. It was definitely a good thing that could cure the old injuries of the cultivators of Fairy Immortal or Xian Immortal level. Every cultivator knew how great the benefits were, so they did not hesitate to line up and join the process of taking the medicine. The first to arrive were, of course, the few major Dao sects nearby. They had natural confidence in Yang Chun. Naturally, the first to benefit from it were the masters of their sect. This time, Chunyang Palace really provided a one-stop service. From the reception to the medication to the provision of rooms for secluded meditation, everything was arranged clearly and logically. For this reason, Chunyang Palace even took out an empty sect-level cave residence to entertain guests from all over the world. The abode was big enough. The masters of different sects were arranged separately to prevent them from fighting. Master Yang's new medicine really surprised many people. He had thought that it would be a brand new pill, but who knew that it would actually be a type of spiritual liquid? No wonder the message only said that it was a new pill and not a new one. It turned out that the hint was already here. What was even more shocking was that the way Yang Chun took the internal inspection fluid was not orally taken, but directly injected into the blood vessels. In the eyes of many people, this was definitely a rebellious way. If everyone used this way, how could they distinguish the grades of these medicinal liquids? In fact, there were no elixir patterns in the medicinal liquid. It could let everyone know at a glance how many refinements the medicinal elixir had gone through and what grade it had reached. Everyone rushed overexcitedly. Suddenly being told such a taboo made many people a little nervous, but soon this nervousness disappeared without a trace. In the end, it was Yang Chun, Master Yang's reputation. In addition, there was also the demonstration of the disciples of Chunyang Palace. The effect was more convincing than anything else. Moreover, everyone also understood that the decisive battle with the Zhao family would soon come. Yang Chun would never do anything that would make his enemies happy. In terms of trust, Yang Chun was even more reassuring than the suzerain of several major sects, using their own natal magic weapons to send the internal inspection fluid into the blood vessels in their bodies, which also made everyone feel better. However, with the effect of the internal inspection fluid, after everyone felt the situation in their bodies, no cultivator mentioned anything about rebellious, and no cultivator felt uneasy. If everyone had to say that they still had uneasy thoughts, it was probably because they found that there were many subtle injuries in their bodies that could not be detected in ordinary days, so they were afraid. The worst was a heaven immortal cultivator. Everyone was afraid that they did not know where they were injured. Now, those subtle wounds were clearly presented in front of everyone's eyes. If they still could not solve it by themselves, they were afraid that they would fail to live up to the name of a heaven immortal or Xian immortal. What was even more unexpected was that after the first use of the internal inspection fluid, there was a second use. This time, everyone felt it more subtle. In addition to those minor injuries, even the most subtle structure of the body could be felt so clearly. This had an immeasurable effect on one's cultivation. The cultivators who discovered this were all overjoyed. At this time, everyone understood why Yang Chun only chose those cultivators who had good relationships with him in the past. With such great benefits, even if there were hundreds or thousands of spirit stones, it was impossible for anyone to help him. Without that friendship, how could Master Yang let you get such a good thing with just spirit stones? This also made many cultivators secretly have an idea in their hearts. In the future, they must maintain a good cooperation with Chunyang Palace and Master Yang. Not for anything else. If Master Yang had any good things in the future, he would always want to have a close relationship with them, right? Everyone was immersed in the insight and understanding, but they did not know that Master Yang in their hearts was also understanding. Ganoderma lucidum pill was originally a medicinal pill for healing injuries. Why couldn't the 8th grade Ganoderma lucidum pill heal these subtle injuries? For Yang Chun, there was only one possibility. That was the Ganoderma lucidum pill that he refined was not perfect enough. That was the 8th grade merit Ganoderma lucidum pill, and it still did not achieve a perfect effect. Yang Chun, the alchemist, would certainly not be satisfied with the status quo. He was discussing this problem with brotherly Chang. According to reason, the merit chapter had already improved the efficacy of Ganoderma lucidum pill to the limit. Was there anything left unfinished? Maybe the problem isn't the way you said. Brotherly Chang pondered for a long time, thought of many possibilities, and then refuted them one by one. In the end, he could only attribute the problem to Yang Chen's unique way of using the medicine. As Yang Chen said, the liquid of the digestive tract may bring a little impact and reduce the efficacy of the medicine. This was inevitable. Unless the method of directly adding the medicine was also used, perhaps the impact could be minimized. Yang Chen was also pondering. Before he could figure out anything, his sea of consciousness suddenly moved, and the virtual sea of consciousness wrapped in Yang Chen's spiritual awareness seed sent a request from Yang Chen. He wanted the pill recipe of Yang Chen's new medicine. Chapter 2343. It was not surprising that Yang Lan knew that Yang Chen had new drug. Although so many puppets have been secretly monitored, they have not been touched. They can still tell some important news directly to Yang Lan, although they are not aware of this. These puppets that had been identified were definitely not qualified to enjoy Yang Chen's new drug. Yang Chen had already explained when he released it that the new drug would only be given to some cultivators who had a good cooperation experience with Chunyang Palace and Yang Chen. With this condition alone, Chunyang Palace could easily turn away those people. What was a good cooperation experience? Wasn't this decided by Chunyang Palace in Yangchun? Coupled with several screening masters secretly sent by the Joint Command, these guys would not be able to get the opportunity to use Yangchun's new drug even if they paid 10 times the price. If it was just an ordinary healing medicinal pill, it would not be a big deal, but all the cultivators who had used it had significant changes, so this new drug was looking forward to it. People like Yang Lan, of course, would not let go of this opportunity, especially when he thought that he could easily get these without paying any price. Therefore, when he found that Yang Chun was no longer hiding in the nested sect-level Immortal's cave, he immediately couldn't wait to send this instruction to Yang Chun. The instruction was very secretive. It seemed that it was completely to let Yang Chun carefully ponder over the pill recipe, which was not a problem for anyone. If there was no hidden spiritual consciousness seed, the vast majority of cultivators would not hesitate to carefully think about their own pill recipes in order to find a better solution. When Yang Chan received this instruction, he couldn't help but laugh. Yang Lan didn't even know what the new drug was, and he wanted the pill recipe. Wasn't this looking for trouble? Of course, this was also due to the control of Chunyang Palace and Yangchun this time. Those who had used the internal inspection fluid did not say the process of using it. He had sworn a great heart demon oath that he would not reveal this to anyone for at least 100 years. Everyone understood this point. After all, this method of injecting the medicinal liquid directly into the blood vessels was very different from traditional medicinal pills. In Master Yang's own words, it was simply rebellious. Therefore, I hope that everyone will keep this a secret so that I don't want to attract the condemnation of all the alchemists in the world. Yang Chun intended to give the cultivators of the spirit realm a buffer period of 100 years. He believed that in the 100 years, Yang Chun would slowly promote this method and make all the cultivators feel that it was normal. Actually, it wasn't a big deal. Master Yang just wanted to play it safe. Since so many profound immortals and heavenly immortals had accepted this method, it wouldn't be too difficult for most cultivators to accept it. Everyone was willing to give Master Yang this face, so only Yang Lan was unlucky. Yang Chun did not hesitate to pass the pill recipe in his mind and directly passed it to Yang Lan. But what Yang Lan would never know was that this was not a medicinal pill, but a kind of soup. In the prescription, Yang Chun recorded in detail the quenching of each medicinal material with different fire seeds. At the same time, several different fire seeds needed to be used in the refining process were all marked on it. It was very intuitive to tell Yang Lan that this new medicinal pill was not ordinary to refine. But Yang Lan didn't know all this. He still analyzed it with an ordinary pill recipe. The difficulty of refining the pill recipe was not a big problem. If the medicinal pill refined by Master Yang was not difficult, then it would be troublesome. The higher the difficulty, the better the medicinal pill. The Zhao family also had alchemists, brilliant alchemists. Although the requirements of Yang Chen's pill recipe were very high, it was not completely impossible to achieve. Even if they needed to use dozens of fire seeds, the Zhao family could find enough alchemists with suitable fire seeds. At most, everyone would work together to refine it. They would make a few mistakes, but there would always be a time when they had a tacit understanding and succeeded in refining. Yang Lan was also a resolute lord, especially when he knew that this new medicinal pill was indeed of great benefit to cultivators. At this time, the major sect in the spiritual world enjoyed this benefit, and their strength improved imperceptibly, which was also a major threat to the Zhao family. Yang Lan only mentioned this, and he got the unanimous support of the Zhao family to refine the medicinal pill. Dozens of alchemists with different fire seeds gathered together and began to study Master Yang's pill recipe. They were all senior alchemists. It was not surprising why Yang Chan needed to use so many fire seeds, because everyone knew their own fire seeds very well and knew which kind of medicinal material was most suitable for quenching. In Master Yang's pill recipe, the quenching fire seed used for each medicinal material was the most suitable fire seed. There was no mistake. This could only show that Master Yang's requirements for the quenching of medicinal materials in the early stage were very high. At the same time, this also showed that the effect of Master Yang's new medicinal pill must be better than everyone expected. As for why Master Yang could use so many fire seeds, this was no secret. Master Yang's profound spirit furnace was said to store nearly tens of thousands of fire seeds in it, and one or several of them could be used at any time. This was the credit of the alchemy furnace, and it had little direct relationship with Master Yang. Unfortunately, how to refine this kind of alchemy furnace? Many refining masters have pondered over it over the years, and none of them have succeeded. The best one could only accommodate dozens of fire seeds, and that was already the limit. However, the alchemy furnace was not researched, but it did not prevent everyone from believing that Master Yang's luck was good, and he got this kind of heaven-defying alchemy furnace. No one doubted the process of using multiple fire seeds in alchemy at the same time. It was not difficult for dozens of alchemists to quench the medicinal materials in the early stage, and it could be done easily. The difficult thing was to use multiple fire seeds at the same time during the refining. Just at this juncture, all the alchemists of the Zhao family were stuck. Everyone has analyzed the pill recipe, and they all understand alchemy. They understand what kind of fire seeds Master Yang used in the pill recipe and what kind of benefits there were. However, everyone always couldn't do it, which made people very speechless. In the end, some people came up with a way. First, they only used one or two kinds of fire seeds that they were best at and successfully refined the medicinal pill. At most, the efficacy was not as good as that of Master Yang's own refining. The efficacy was a little lower, and everyone first understood what the benefits of this medicinal pill were. This was a concise idea, and the Zhao family senior executives and Yang Lan also nodded. So, after nearly a year of figuring out Master Yang's pill recipe, the best alchemists of the Zhao family began to refine a simplified version of the medicinal pill after removing several kinds of fire seeds. They first figured out what the specific use of the medicinal pill was. Chapter 2344. The Zhao family was also helpless. Who made Grandmaster Yang's medicinal pills so difficult to refine? In terms of medicinal pills, even if Yang Lan was not convinced that Yang Chun was riding on his head, he also sincerely admired it. Everything seemed to go very smoothly, and the simplified pill recipe really had no obstacles in the end. However, the new problem that made the Zhao family alchemists realize the gap between themselves and Grandmaster Yang appeared again. For more than a dozen times, the best alchemist of the Zhao family failed to successfully collect the pills. Every time, it was the same problem. It had reached the final step of the process of collecting the pills. The medicinal liquid in the alchemy furnace had barely met the requirements for it to come out of the furnace, but it would fall short when collecting the pills. No matter what method everyone used to collect the pills, they couldn't condense even a single medicinal pill. Even several alchemists failed. In this process, the participating alchemists were collectively speechless. It seemed that the simplified version of the pill recipe really couldn't be compared with the complete version of the pill recipe. Without the refining of the few key fire seeds, the pills were so unsmooth. This was the gap. No wonder the name of Grandmaster Yang's alchemy could spread throughout the spiritual world. It really made sense. No one would have thought that Yang Chen's prescription did not have the steps of collecting the pills from the beginning to the end, but everyone subconsciously thought that this was common sense. Grandmaster Yang was too lazy to record it in the pill recipe. When refining, he operated according to common sense. As a last resort, everyone could only use their brains to find ways to make up for the unsmooth process of collecting the pills. Under the collective efforts of the group, several alchemists found a way. They were all alchemists, and any random one of them would have their own unique skills. They were not people with undeserved reputations. The effect of the medicinal pill, according to the medicinal properties of those medicinal materials, was basically analyzed by the alchemists of the Zhao family. It was to enlarge the perception in the body, and it was not a complicated function. Strictly speaking, this should only be an upgraded version of the inner sensing pill that Grandmaster Yang refined in the past. The pill recipe of the inner sensing pill was also purchased from Grandmaster Yang. Now it was just improved, under the premise of knowing the efficacy of the medicine. In the final medicinal soup, if a peaceful medicinal material was added before collecting the pills, the pills could be smoothly collected without affecting the medicinal properties. Under the premise that there was no other better way, they could only try it first. Thus, everyone worked together once more, and according to the method they had researched, after adding a medicinal ingredient, they finally succeeded in condensing the pill. Someone volunteered to test the medicine. After taking it, he felt the condition of his body. Apart from the lack of hearing, amplification, and pain, the other sensations were as clear as day. It was a pity that he was only experimenting with a first transition refinement. Although the effects were there, it was only so. If he wanted to have a clearer look at the condition of his body, he would probably have to go through a high-grade refinement. This proved that everyone's previous guess was correct. However, the fact that Grandmaster Yang was able to disregard his sense of hearing and pain made all the participating alchemists admire him greatly. Grandmaster Yang, if we don't talk about the standpoint of both sides, is really a respectable alchemist who pursues the perfect effect of alchemy. Following that, the alchemists of the Zhao family continued to cooperate and began to refine high-grade pills. There were also many 7th-grade alchemists in Zhao family. After a series of twists and turns, the simplified version of the 7th-grade inner sensing pill was finally released. The cultivator who was testing the medicine finally experienced a brand new feeling. The condition of his body was almost clear at a glance. What shocked him was that there were so many tiny scars on his body. The cultivator who was testing the medicine was so scared that he broke out in a cold sweat. Fortunately, his cultivation base was enough, and these tiny scars were quickly repaired. After getting up, the alchemists of the Zhao family saw the changes in his body with the naked eye. It must be said that after the simplification of these Zhao family alchemists and the addition of some medicinal ingredients, the simplified version of the inner sensing pill, refined by the 7th grade, had achieved the effect of Yang Chen's 1st-grade internal sensing liquid. Of course, that was all, and it was impossible to improve. But this was enough for the Zhao family. Without Grandmaster Yang's personal refining, this was already the limit that could be done according to Grandmaster Yang's pill recipe. They believed that after the masters of the Zhao family swallowed these simplified versions of the inner sensing pills, they would have greater cultivation potential, and if they were lucky, they could even directly promote a small realm. This time, the gap between the cultivators of the spiritual world and the Zhao family because of Grandmaster Yang's new medicine was also narrowed because of this inner sensing pill. It could be said that everyone had once again reached the same level. Although the effect of the simplified version was worse, the strongest alchemists of the Zhao family also firmly believed that the gap with Grandmaster Yang would not be particularly big. Between the Zhao family and the sect in the spiritual world, it seemed that they had secretly confronted each other again through Yang Chen's pill recipe, and the Zhao family was temporarily at a disadvantage. However, the Zhao family did not realize that just from their research of the pill recipe to refining the simplified version of the medicinal pill, they had already been pushed back 5 years. 5 years. In addition to the huge difference in the efficacy of the medicine, they had actually fallen behind by more than a little. Especially at the golden immortal level, the simplified version of the inner sensing pill of the Zhao family had little effect on their golden immortal masters. But the golden immortal masters of the major sect who had taken turns to use the internal sensing liquid in Chunyang Palace had all improved a small realm. The top masters on one side were still recuperating, but the other side had all improved. It seemed that the balance of victory had silently tilted towards the side of the major sect. During this time, Yang Chun was not idle. He and elder brother Li Chung had a very in-depth discussion about the reason why the 8th-grade merit Ganoderma lucidum jade pill could not heal the slightest scars. At first, elder brother Li Chung thought that it might also be related to the way the medicine was taken. However, after careful study, they found that it might not be this reason. In order to figure out the way the Ganoderma lucidum jade pill worked, Yang Chun used the 8th-grade internal sensing liquid and then took the Ganoderma lucidum jade pill to explore the process of the Ganoderma lucidum jade pill from the most subtle level. This was a new way to test the medicinal properties. In the past, the alchemists had such an opportunity to accurately explore how the medicinal pill worked in the body. Even elder brother Li Cheng showed great interest in the way Yang Chun proposed to test the efficacy of the medicine, and he also tried it in person. The process of the Ganoderma lucidum jade pill decomposing into the abdomen, then flowing to the whole body with the blood, and then stimulating the most subtle body structure to grow and recover was presented in the eyes of Yang Chun and Li Cheng. The level of detail made elder brother Li Cheng express extreme shock. Whether you can find out the reason or not, you have discovered this method of detecting the medicinal properties. Even among the alchemists in the immortal world, you could be ranked. Elder brother Li Cheng said, Chapter 2345. The 8th-grade merit Ganoderma lucidum jade pill slowly entered the abdomen from the mouth, and this process was very clearly perceived by Yang Chun and Li Cheng. In order to thoroughly understand the process of the efficacy of the merit Ganoderma lucidum jade pill, Yang Chun and Li Cheng even made a few wounds on their own bodies. Of course, this also took a lot of effort. With their current cultivation base, they could hurt themselves. The location of the wound was also chosen in the most perceptible part so that they could more clearly understand what the healing process was. At the same time, there were also several other 8th-grade internal inspection liquid prepared, ready to be sent into their own blood vessels when the perception ability here was insufficient. Yang Chen's spiritual awareness stared closely at the Ganoderma lucidum jade pill in his abdomen, and at the same time his perception was fully opened, feeling how the medicinal pill was dissolved and digested in the stomach, then entered the blood and flowed to the whole body with the blood. It must be said that the Ganoderma lucidum jade pill has been passed down for many years, and it has become the most famous healing medicinal pill. It has its own reason. Yang Chun just watched the process of these medicinal pills being decomposed in the stomach and then absorbed into the blood so smoothly, he knew that this was not a problem with the way the medicine was taken. The most subtle effective component of the medicinal pill, the process of entering the blood, was so simple, it seemed to easily penetrate the stomach wall into the blood vessels, and soon flowed to all parts of the body with the blood. There was a damaged tissue in the wound. As soon as it touched these most subtle medicinal pill particles, it would be attached, and then under the influence of the medicinal effect, it would quickly secrete something that stimulated the growth of the body. The medicinal pill not only stimulated the secretion, but also provided a strong enough energy so that the tissues in the wound could grow easily without consuming too much of the body's matter. The largest wound was quickly healed in just a few minutes. Of course, there was the influence of Yang Chen's own self-healing ability, but the medicinal effect of Ganoderma lucidum jade pill was still not available. The whole recovery process was clearly presented in front of Yang Chun. He saw it clearly and seemed to understand a little bit. As for why he wanted to know the reason why this level of Ganoderma lucidum jade pill could not heal the subtle wounds, he seemed to have found some answers in it. It could be broken down into the tiniest pill particles, which are also the effective ingredients of the pill, but the size of the single pill was still a little too big. It was a well-known fact that it had an outstanding effect on ordinary wounds. However, for the wound that could only be seen clearly with the use of the internal inspection fluid, it was still a bit too big. Sometimes, if one was lucky, that kind of medicinal pellet could reach the wound and the wound would be healed. But if he was unlucky and couldn't reach the wound, the small wound would remain there. A small wound of this degree, on the whole, did not have any effect at all, and the tissues on the outside also looked very healthy. There was no difference between being cured and not being cured, at least in the eyes of ordinary people. However, it was precisely because of these tiny, almost invisible wounds that caused the body's tissues to age and lose effectiveness. However, time was a continuous process. For ordinary people, it might last for decades, but for cultivators, it would last even longer. When the injuries accumulated to a certain extent, these tiny wounds that could not be seen would become the culprits that caused certain illnesses or even fatal injuries. The self-healing ability of cultivators was stronger than that of ordinary people. Some small wounds would be healed after a long period of spiritual power nourishment, but some would never be healed and would continue to accumulate. The small wounds that Yang Chun and others could see through the internal inspection fluid were continuous accumulation. As the time of cultivation grew longer, these wounds would also become a hidden disaster. Only when they reached the almighty immortal level could they effectively heal some of them. But the more subtle ones might only be discovered and healed when they reached the innumerable tribulation true immortal level. Through the internal inspection fluid, these hidden disasters could be erased when the cultivators were still at the fairy immortal level, which was absolutely of great significance to the cultivators. The whole process lasted for a long time. Yang Chun and Li Cheng waited until the efficacy was completely consumed before they stopped observing and came to their own conclusions. When the two of them compared each other, they basically had the same reason. The smallest particle of Ganoderma lucidum jade pill was still too big and was blocked by some tissues, so it was not enough to reach the most subtle structure of the body. This had nothing to do with the way of ingestion, but it was related to the size. Yang Chun and Li Cheng were both the best alchemists. They had never found such a problem with Ganoderma lucidum jade pill, which had been used for many years. Now that both of them had identified the root cause, they naturally wanted to test it. Brother Li Cheng had never refined medicinal pills. At least Yang Chun and Yang Chen's family had never seen Brother Li Cheng refine medicinal pills, but this did not prevent them from believing that Brother Li Cheng was definitely a good alchemist. After all, Brother Li Cheng was the successor of the Tao ancestor. How could it be possible that he did not know alchemy? It was rare that Brother Li Cheng directly asked for an alchemy room in Yang Chen's Dragon Palace and wanted to refine medicinal pills himself. The reason was that he wanted to verify this discovery personally. This was a rare piece of big news, and all the women gathered around to watch. Yang Chun was also very much looking forward to it. He wanted to see to what extent big Brother Li Cheng could refine it. Of course, in her heart, it was not necessarily that she didn't want to compete with Brother Li Cheng. When Brother Li Cheng entered the alchemy room, Yang Chun also entered his own alchemy room. From the beginning of refining the internal inspection liquid, Yang Chen's alchemy level had entered another new realm. At this time, refining Ganoderma lucidum jade pill, it was natural to use a new refining method. Not to mention anything else, just in the early treatment of medicinal materials, Yang Chun was already a well-deserved master. All medicinal materials were first treated with the most suitable fire seed to reach the purest level. In the process of processing, Yang Chun did not forget to crush these medicinal materials to the smallest extent. After all, Ganoderma lucidum jade pill did not work on subtle wounds. The decisive factor was the size of the basic particles of the medicinal pills. Yang Chun would crush these medicinal materials to the extreme in the beginning stage. The early treatment took half of Yang Chun's time. It was mainly used to crush the medicinal materials to the minimum as much as possible. After reaching the limit that Yang Chun could handle, Yang Chun began the official alchemy. In the process of alchemy, Yang Chun also paid great attention to the size of the combined medicinal pills and tried to control the basic particles of Ganoderma lucidum jade pill to the limit. At this point, his super spiritual awareness helped a lot. At least under the exploration of Yang Chen's spiritual awareness, the current medicinal pills were more than 1/10 smaller than before. Chapter 2346. Although this 1/10 may still be larger than the most basic structure of the fleshly body, it was already more subtle than the tissue structure perceived after using the first-grade internal inspection liquid. Yang Chun doesn't need to pursue higher results now. He just needs to know if a more subtle structure of the medicinal pill can work on that level of injury. Yang Chun and Li Cheng came out of the alchemy room almost at the same time, which showed that the speed of the two people's alchemy was similar. In such a short period of time, it was obvious that the two people couldn't carry out a few grades of refining. Everyone was refining at the first grade, but there was no doubt that even if it was a first-grade refining medicinal pill, Yang Chun and Li Cheng's personal refining was no less than the ordinary 7th-grade medicinal pill of an ordinary alchemy master. The two people exchanged the medicinal pills in their hands to observe each other. Yangchen almost couldn't wait to directly enlarge elder brother Li Cheng's medicinal pill in his sea of consciousness. It must be known that this was the first medicinal pill that Yangchen got from elder brother Li Cheng. By this, he could also find out how high elder brother Li Cheng's level of alchemy was. Yangchen had already studied his own medicinal pill. This time, when he compared it with elder brother Li Cheng's, he basically saw the difference between the two sides. From the refined medicinal pill, it could be found that elder brother Li Cheng's early treatment of medicinal materials was not as good as Yangchen's. This was understandable. After all, elder brother Li Cheng did not have the yin-yang heaven-burning fire like Yangchen. He could not simulate the characteristics of different fire seeds, so he could not deal with the medicinal materials to the best state. However, the basic particles of the medicinal pill refined by elder brother Li Cheng were 1/3 smaller than those refined by Yangchen. Although it still couldn't reach the size of the most basic structure of the body, from this point of view, it could be found that elder brother Li Cheng's refining level was still higher than Yangchen's. Although there was a little disappointment in his heart, Yangchen was not discouraged because of this. It must be known that elder brother Li Cheng was a disciple of the Tao ancestor. It was normal for him to be better than Yangchen in alchemy. If Yangchen, a guy who explored by himself, could surpass elder brother Li Cheng in alchemy, it would be a strange thing. Your yin-yang heaven-burning fire is simply the best fire for alchemy. Big brother Li Cheng, who was at the side, had already begun to speak. When it comes to handling medicinal herbs, no one can do better than you. This was a compliment, and a sincere one at that. This made Yangchen very happy, even happier than when his own alchemy philosophy was recognized by big brother Li Cheng. No matter what, at least he was better than big brother Li Cheng in one aspect. Big brother, your alchemy standards make me concede defeat. Yangchen's words also came from his heart. The medicinal herbs were handled well, but the final result was still 1/3 bigger than brother Li Cheng's. The perception in this was still very obvious. However, Yangchen's words still shocked the women. All along, the girls had thought that their husband was the best alchemy master in the world. Even if big brother Li Cheng's standards were high, they had never seen his work, so it was not easy to judge. Now Yangchen's words directly confirmed the fact that his alchemy level was inferior to big brother Li Cheng. Their own husband had already shocked everyone. Big brother Li Cheng, who was even more powerful than their own husband, what was his level of alchemy? In addition to the horror, the women were also looking forward to big brother Li Cheng's medicinal pill. How good could it be? In fact, at this point, Yangchen and Li Cheng could basically be sure that this size of the medicinal pellet should be able to solve the wound seen by the first-grade internal inspection liquid. However, the theory was the theory, the reality was the reality. Whether it could achieve the effect, they still needed to feel it again after taking the medicine. Still, the two of them tried the medicinal pills together. Each tried the medicinal pills that they refined, and then carefully observed it with the help of the internal inspection liquid. It must be said that this kind of testing method was a revolutionary leap for the alchemy master. How many alchemy masters had to use a variety of animals to test the medicine in order to find the accurate medicinal properties? Later, they even had to use some mortals and cultivators to test the medicine, just to know the efficacy. Even Yangchen, when refining the broken limb regeneration pill, actually used the same method. It was just that when testing the medicine, the cultivators who tested the medicine had more confidence in Yangchen. Now with this method, basically, as long as the medicinal effect stabilized, the alchemy master could clearly see how the medicinal effect worked, which was more intuitive than relying on others' description and observation. Of course, it was not without disadvantages. After all, the alchemy master might not have just the right disease or injury, and as long as it was medicine, most of it was used to cure diseases. Sometimes it was not so suitable. Didn't Yangchen and Li Cheng have to give themselves a few cuts and swords in order to test the effect? In any case, Yangchen and Li Cheng finally saw the situation after the new medicinal pill worked again. Sure enough, as expected by the two of them, after reducing the particles, there was finally an obvious and outstanding effect on the subtle injuries. In the same way, for the more subtle wounds, it was still not the slightest effect. This result was expected by the two of them. The final medicine just confirmed their previous guesses and did not bring them much surprise. He didn't know how brotherly Chung was, but Yang Chun had a very clear goal. In a short period of time, Yang Chun didn't have to think about breaking through the realm of the ninth-grade alchemy master. Even if he went to the immortal world, it would still be a vague pursuit. But there was a very specific goal in front of him, which was to reduce the basic particles of the medicinal pill as much as possible, to the point where it could treat the slightest injuries. If he could do this step, in the words of brotherly Chung, among the 8th-grade alchemy master, even if those predecessors in the immortal world were counted, Yang Chun could definitely be ranked in the top 10. This evaluation was simply beyond everyone's expectations. One must know that the 8th-grade alchemy master in the immortal world, the worst, was estimated to have ascended to the immortal world for more than 2,000 years, and Yang Chun was only a younger generation junior who had only stayed in the spiritual world for 2,000 years. However, at least Yang Chun believed that if he could be ranked in the top 10 of the 8th-grade alchemy master, then brotherly Cheng's ranking must be ahead of him. In fact, it's also a surprise for me, and it gives me a clearer goal. When talking about this topic, brotherly Chung smiled and handed a jade bottle to Yang Chun and said with a smile, at our level, how difficult it is to find a direction to break through. In addition, you don't have to count me in the top 10. At this age, you are the best. Everyone didn't understand why big brotherly Chung said this until Yang Chun opened the jade bottle and looked at the golden medicinal pill inside. Only then did they understand. On the medicinal pill that big brotherly Chung gave Yang Chun, there were 9 incomparably clear pill marks.